Welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast, a Sumadre production.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Lift off and the clock has started.
Roger, 0G, and I feel fine. Roger, 0G, and I feel fine.
Hello, Space Dreamers. Welcome to the podcast. This is episode I don't know because I just don't know. I do know that it's the 6th book, so this is episode ACC06. So this is the 6th novel that we are going over in the Space Dreamers podcast. I'm joined today, I'm your host as always, Jared Parisi, and I'm joined today by a frequent co-host, Amy. Say hello, Amy.
Hello.
Hi. So today we are talking about The City in the Stars, which is Clarke's 6th novel. But technically, I was just about to explain this to Amy. Maybe she already knows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
So The City in the Stars is a complete and total full-on rewrite of what's Clarke's technically first novel, which was titled Against the Fall of Night. And I have never read Against the Fall of Night. If, like so many other people I've learned on the internet, I loved this novel, I would probably read its origin, but I've never felt compelled to read a novel that Clarke himself says isn't as good as his rewrite. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Maybe like at the end, like when I hit the last, well, like when this podcast is over and I'm still fiending for more Arthur C. Clarke, like I could do an episode about that one, but as of right now, I have no interest. I did find somebody on Instagram. I'm actually just now being introduced to the world of people who sell books on Instagram. Like, I just had no idea that was such a popular thing.
Interesting.
Like, I follow 3 accounts now that are all literally just people who sell books. So they post a picture of this like old, beautiful sci-fi cover or book or whatever, and they say, you know, cost this much, $3 for shipping. Just DM me if you want it.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, and I've bought like quite a few books, maybe like 8 from these people.
Sounds like it speaks right to impulse buying.
Oh,
like you just see the picture and you're like, gotta have it sold.
Yep. Yeah, and it's you just like PayPal them. It's so simple.
Nice. Wow.
And then they send you a picture of like the receipt with the tracking info.
Oh.
And then it arrives a couple days later.
So easy.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah.
But anyway, somebody had a super old copy of Against the Fall of Night. And in my mind, I was like, like, I kind of want that, but I shouldn't buy that. So I didn't buy it. But maybe, like I said, maybe in the future. Anyway, so The City in the Stars. I consider this novel to be an Arthur C. Clarke outlier. I do not think it resembles many of his other books, like really at all. In my opinion, it's a very different kind of sci-fi. Maybe that's not true. I don't know, because I have that ingrained in my mind from when I first started getting into Clarke. I've always recognized this as an outlier.
I feel like it is. I haven't read a lot of his. I have not read all of his stuff.
You've read enough to.
I've read enough to see the difference between this and the other stuff, and I agree. I think it's completely different.
Yes. Okay. So at least we agree that it's different. But when it comes to quality, I don't know if we agree. But at the same time, I don't think I agree with most Clarke fans because, like I said, recently I've learned that a lot of people consider this one of his best novels, and I don't know. I don't agree. Not that that really matters, but anyway, let's just get into it. So I know that Amy liked it more than I did.
Yes.
And it's not to say I don't think it's a bad novel. It's just not, this kind of science fiction is not what I seek when I pick up a Clarke novel. Just not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So let's start with, I want Amy to give a breakdown of the plot. Like someone who loved the story, like if you didn't know that I had read it, or if I hadn't read it, like how would you explain it? Just give it, and you can be pretty detailed, and I'll fill in the details that I think should be told in more detail. Like for instance, I could tell you everything in perfect order, what happens up until he meets that gelatinous thing in the lake, and then beyond that, my interest begins to wane, and because my interest begins to wane, my ability to keep track of all the different things that are going on and all the lies that have been told to the characters.
Oh, right.
And so then they're told
Yeah.
to you. Like, for instance, wait, hold on, real quick. This Wizard of Oz character in this novel, who is he?
Wizard of Oz?
So
What are you talking
the
about?
robot, isn't the
Oh.
robot, wasn't his
Yeah.
master like a
Yeah,
liar?
the master.
The master. Wasn't he this like peddler of a fake religion or something?
Yeah.
He's like a Wizard of Oz character.
Yeah.
But
I
how
can
does
see
he
that.
fit into the narrative of the universe? I never picked that up. Who is he?
He's just a guy.
That's it?
Yeah, I mean he's the you
Is he an
need
alien?
him. I think technically yes. I think he's like of the same, like he's human, but
Yeah, but you learn at the end that the humans are the ones who created the two AIs, right? The two bodiless consciousnesses.
yeah.
So is the master separate from that? He's neither a creation or a creator. He's somebody else.
Yeah, he's just a guy.
A guy or an alien?
No, he's a guy.
He's a human?
Yeah, they explain it.
Okay.
They explain it. But his presence in the story is merely a catalyst for
Okay.
because without the master, you don't have the spaceship. That's why the master is important.
Got it. Okay.
Is merely the spaceship.
Okay. So
the way I
let's.
saw it, anyway.
What are you looking for?
You can keep talking.
Well, I want you to tell the plot of the book.
Oh, well, see, you want me to? Told me you wanted me to tell the plot of the book, and then we start getting into specifics.
Well, I know, because I just needed that answer. I didn't know. While I was reading, I was like, who's this master? And he sounds like the Wizard of Oz. And he sounds interesting, but I feel like you don't really learn that much about him.
Yeah, but I think he's just a religious zealot.
Okay. Wait, is he Yarlan Zay?
Oh God, no.
Okay, just tell the plot, and then I'll ask questions as we go.
Okay.
I'm an idiot, apparently.
So no, you're not an idiot. I just think that you're focusing on the details instead of maybe the overall.
Dude,
like,
okay, this is
scope of
dude.
things.
This is precisely why I don't like this kind of sci-fi. And it's not to say that it's bad or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
remember when weren't we talking about Star Wars and how I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what does the Empire want? Like, why are they so mean?
Right.
Just go to a different part of the solar system or a different part of the galaxy.
Right.
Like, there's plenty of space in space. You don't have to control every planet and
Yeah.
be evil.
Yeah.
Like, just go elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that's my problem with this kind of sci-fi.
Yeah. It's funny that you're saying that about Star Wars because that's exactly what I've been saying for like the whole season 3 of Battlestar Galactica. I'm like,
What, that they could just
why-
separate?
Yes.
Right?
Why don't the Cylons just go somewhere else?
Dude, I agree wholeheartedly.
Like it doesn't make any
I
sense.
think they're just obsessed with humans.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, let's talk about City in the Stars.
Okay. So the plot.
Yeah.
So it opens in Diaspar.
Yup.
And it's a machine computer controlled utopian city billions of years into the future of where we currently stand. We would be in what's considered the Dawn Ages
Yes.
in the novel. So it centers around Alvin, and Alvin is unique because he's the first person that's been quote unquote born in Diaspar in like, what was it? Like
I think a million years.
A million years,
It says it
yeah.
on the back of my cover. He was the
Yeah.
first child to be born on Earth for at least 10 million years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. So, yeah, that's something that you definitely have to kind of come to terms with is that everything in this novel is like billions and millions of years.
Yeah, like the Earth is a desert.
Yeah. So Diaspar is a enclosed city
Yes.
that exists in the desert of Earth. There's no ocean. As far as everyone's concerned in Diaspar, nothing else exists outside of their city.
It's your classic, like, I mean, it's religion. It's sausage party. It's You've never been outside, and neither have I,
Right.
but I'm going to tell you what's out there, even though I've never
Yes.
been there, and you're going to believe me, and that's it.
Yes.
And then your standard, and then when a story starts like that, obviously there's always one character who says, F you, I'm going outside the walls.
So one of the interesting things
And
is
they learn
that
that they were being lied to. Sorry, continue.
well, one of the interesting things is that I think what's interesting is that it's not so much something that's spoken. It's like an unspoken thing that you don't even think about going
Yeah.
outside of the city. Like you're born. It's like intrinsically in you, like it's a value you're just like born with. Like nobody has to say don't go outside the city. Like you just would never even conceive of it.
Right. And that is actually very well what am I thinking? It's very well described in the novel when Alystra. Remember when Alystra, his girlfriend, is with him and they're continuing and she's with him and then they get to a point where she just won't go any further.
Right. He wants to show her. He just wants to show her from the confines of the city. He wants to show her outside the city, and she can't even bring herself to walk even remotely close to the window.
And I think Clarke describes it in a really interesting, a nuanced way.
Right.
She's not like terrified, and it's not like she's turned her brain off and it's just like, no, I don't do that. It just seems like, as you described, it's inherent in her that's just not something that concerns me.
I think it was described it's like almost like part of evolution. Like after like all these millions of years, it's just part of who you are.
Yeah, maybe like a reflex.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, so I just
instinct.
I have to point out one
Yeah.
amazing line by Clarke that you said because you mentioned the Dawn Ages.
Mm.
I love this line. So he says,
Mankind had lost its past, save for a few chronicles that might be wholly legendary. Before Diosphere, there was simply the Dawn Ages. In that limbo were merged inextricably together the first men to tame fire and the first to release atomic energy, the first men to build a log canoe and the first to reach the stars. On the far side of this desert of time, they were all neighbors.
just to think, like we think of, I mean, even it's summed up in the film 2001 when the first monkey to ever use a bone as a tool throws it in the air, and then there's a jump cut from the tool to the spaceship. It's like, okay, man's first tool is the bone. Man's most recent tool, humankind's first tool is the bone. Humankind's most recent tool is the spaceship. That gap is massive, right? And that's the point of the jump cut, is to demonstrate, wow, how massive of a jump. According to this novel, it's all in the same neighborhood.
Right, because
perspective,
Right, because from where the novel takes place, that was such a teeny, teeny, tiny portion of time.
Exactly.
Which is something that's interesting.
Yes.
You know, having to just accept that while reading this whole novel.
Yeah, and again, to reiterate, again, I do not think this is a bad novel. I'm just like it's certainly just as thought provoking as all of his other novels, if not more.
Well, I mean, definitely, but even just when it comes to like a good book, like the minute I started reading this, I was intrigued. I was never bored. It was always going somewhere. I was always interested in what the answers were, what he was searching for, what was going to happen. Like, I think it was just like a really good story.
Maybe that is why I didn't like it, because I've already read this novel. And
possibly.
And although I certainly didn't remember all the details, I did know, like I knew where it was all going.
Yeah. I just kept thinking the entire time I was reading it is why this has not been turned into a film. This would make an incredibly good movie, and I think people would love it. It has everything that you could ask for in a story.
I think that it would make a good movie if it was made now.
Yeah.
I don't think with like the 80. Well, okay, like obviously filmmakers can do awesome things
Right.
no matter what the technology limits them to. But like, I just see. I picture this while I was reading it. Just when you're saying this, I was imagining like how it would be shot, and I think what I imagine and what appears to be like modern good science fiction is anything directed by, and the guy who's doing Dune. I cannot pronounce his last name. Denis Villeneuve.
Oh, okay.
I think that's his last name.
Yeah.
But anyway, he did Arrival, and just the trailers for Dune, like the cinematography, everything about it just looks properly epic,
Right.
and pulled off via modern filmmaking techniques. Another similar film, like just movies that you couldn't make even 10 years ago. The newest Mad Max, like visually.
Yeah.
Like you don't even, while watching that movie, you don't realize that every single shot of that film has CGI in it.
I
You
know.
just don't even know.
No, not at
So
all.
another example would be like Prometheus. And there's Blade Runner 2049, also directed by Denis Villeneuve. That dude, and Christopher Nolan as well. Just like the proper epic scope for sci-fi.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you could do this novel with that eye.
See, I honestly think that the story part of this book is so good that you could have made it a long time ago, and it still would have been incredible just because of the story.
What's your favorite part of this novel? Like, do you have like a favorite moment?
Oh, when he finally finds the way into like that little like almost like subway station.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I was on the edge of my seat reading it.
Really?
Yes, I was like, what is he going to find? Is he going to find
I knew exactly what he was gonna
somewhere
find.
out, was he going to find something? Was he not going to find something? Was he going to find an ugly truth? Was he going to find, massacred people? Was he going to find a wonderful plate? Like, I was like on the edge of my seat through that whole thing.
Okay.
And I thought I really enjoyed the inclusion of Kadron.
That's his tutor, right? His tutor, correct?
No, that's his tutor's Jessarak.
Oh, he's
Kadron
the
is
jester.
the jester.
Okay.
Yeah.
I cannot. When novels, when the names are just like weird, made up shit, I just can't deal with that.
I did think that was really funny though, because how his name is Elvin,
right?
But everybody else has these like cool names.
I know. It is weird.
Yeah.
But
so anyway, the plot. Back to the plot
yes.
is that he so in this world in Diaspar, you're you walk out of the Hall of Creation as a fully formed human. I was very disturbed to find out that they do not have hair. They don't have hair anywhere else on their body except for their heads. They do not have teeth. They do not have fingernails.
Yeah, what do they eat?
And
do they eat?
They also don't have any distinguishable male or female features.
Yeah.
Because
they're all inside their bodies.
Yeah. So
they
that
don't
was
need 'em.
interesting. Well, exactly. Yeah, they don't need them.
I mean, they're technically clones,
they do.
right? Aren't they?
I think technically, yeah.
Okay.
They do need them because Clarke goes into, a good description of, how like sex is still a thing, even though procreation is not. So, I mean, one could say they need them. They just, I think actually he calls it a better design. They're not just like hanging out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No,
So-
there is a line where,
Yeah.
oh, God, I wish I marked it, or maybe I didn't. I can't remember. But it's something about, he alludes to it's like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yes, exactly.
It's pretty funny.
It's totally great.
I think when he sees the list people for the first time
yes.
is when he makes that comment.
Yes, it's so funny. And then, of course, the most important thing is that they don't have belly buttons.
Yeah.
Because again, they no longer procreate naturally as humans would. They are sort of like their memory, their personality, their minds, their consciousness goes into storage, and then they just get new flesh
Very
bodies.
similar to a certain TV show we're
Yes,
watching.
definitely. Yeah. So they
So wait, I want to pause on this right
Yeah.
now, just because I want to talk about this, and I just want to talk about this as a concept.
Yeah.
Okay. In Battlestar Galactica, they talk about how death is a learning experience.
right.
And I love that but I think it's only appropriate for a warring civilization where
Agreed.
death is a learning experience. In this case, it would appear life is a learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because your whole point of existing in Battlestar Galactica on either side is to defeat the enemy.
Right.
So your whole point of existing is to engage in battle and either die or triumph.
Right.
In this novel, there's none of that. So you're basically you're in a civilization, which I mean, it eventually kind of like they're all controlled by a computer. But I think it's interesting that I feel like, and I could be wrong, but you would be able to create a perfect civilization if it was constantly being recycled with the same people. Because you would learn when you
Right.
were born again, you would say, well, it was like this when I was alive last time, and I know from that lifetime that what was good and what was bad, and I can correct those things now.
Yeah.
But if you have it's an interesting idea that no one's born and no one dies. Everyone is just constantly being recycled in Diaspar.
Right. And Clarke goes into like great detail about how, I love, and that was the thing. The beginning of this book is so interesting. How it's like such a well thought out creation. How the same people are never usually together. Like it's always like a special mix of like
Right.
the right types of people. Like,
Dude, can you imagine how sad that would be if you spent your whole life with someone and then when you were reborn, like they weren't going to be born again for like 1,000 years.
but I think the point is that these cycles happen. Like their each lifespan is about 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like by the time it's so you don't get bored.
Dude, that's
how you deal with
technically
immortality. No, it is immortality, but that's what's so neat is that it's the way that they deal with immortality is to never get bored by having the same people around you.
But now I'm hit with this thought of, okay, well, if you miss that person that was in your last lifetime, you wouldn't be sad. Now we're going to get into a discussion about utopia. You wouldn't be sad, dude, because you could just sit around for 1,000 years and fuck off and
Right.
wait till your buddy was born again. But then again, who knows if you were born. Anyway,
Right.
you know that eventually, I would assume you would eventually, dude, because then someone should write a story that takes place in this world. It's like a fucking The City and the Stars, the Romeo and Juliet version, where like they have to wait thousands and millions of years to be reunited.
Well, that's kind of one of the things that they also address is that there really aren't those strong emotions.
Oh, yeah.
You're just kind of like, you know how he says that there are like millions of people in Diaspar and he like knows all of them.
Yeah, so who created Diaspar? Why does Diaspar even exist? Honestly. Like, what's the point? Again, I'm not going to go really deep into utopia and the fact that, like, if you're in a world like this, there's zero incentive to be a better version of yourself, to work on yourself, and to be better. Look, why does Diaspar exist? Do you know?
Well, it was created as a safe haven. Like when things, it's hard even now.
Is the
Distinguishing-
computer in charge, or is it just the facilitator?
It was like the guide.
Okay.
Like because men created the central computer.
Okay.
So and the central computer like grows and evolves and maintains, and I mean it's everything. It's the life support system. It's literally everything. It's also in control of who's in storage and who's, living a life, and I mean it's in charge of everything. Within that you have free will, as Alvin is a great example, but it's like the overseer, it's the protector, it's like mother, father, it's everything. It is everything.
Okay.
I think they live in obviously in harmony. I think that's like too, like there's no, like the way everything is fine. It's just like how life is, and it's just wonderful and beautiful, and there's no nighttime, which is interesting.
Right.
There's no need for sleep.
Yeah, they don't sleep.
Yeah. Everything that you want or need, you just conjure.
That's utopia.
Yeah, well, it's definitely utopia.
Yeah.
The other side of utopia is lice. Is that how we pronounce it? Lice.
I was saying lice.
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 Lice. Lice. I don't know. That's a different kind of utopia.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is that? Wait, how is that utopia?
Because they don't need to work. It's almost like a communist utopia.
Yeah.
Like they don't have to, like they all work together, they all help each other, they all, share this collective telepathic consciousness. Yeah. They're not lonely. They're, they're one with nature. I mean, it's like a whole different kind of utopia.
Yeah. I wouldn't use the word utopia, but that's probably just, I feel like that's just like a really, really good and successful version of a civilization. I don't know if that, like, I would consider Diaspar much more utopian than.
But that has to do with what your what your personal idea of utopia is.
I guess utopia isn't real, so technically, like no one's ever achieved it. So technically, when you envision it, you're envisioning your own version of it.
Right, and there are many different types.
Right,
Right.
Right.
I mean, but both of them, both civilizations are the same. They don't have to work. They don't have war. They don't have disease. They, they're two of the same thing, just a different way.
It's funny that you say that because they're posed in the novel as opposites, right? Or just separate.
I think
initially
in
they're
opposites,
supposed to,
okay. Yeah, because I mean, like one of the things that they talk about is like Diaspar is focused on technology and the computer and all that, whereas Lice,
old school.
Yeah, focused, but more importantly, they focus on the human mind, which is where, psychology and, which is how they ended up with all their mental powers.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is something to be envious of, so it's like, I'm pretty sure Alvin's envious of it when he gets there. So anyway, we still have to go back though, because we haven't even gotten out of Diaspar and the thing. So anyway, there's something. So when you walk out of the Hall of Creation, you're a fully formed human.
Yep.
The first 20 years of your life, you have parents who take care of you, who help you with all the, how the city works and all the norms and social, hierarchies and how you navigate the world that you've just walked into. Mm-hmm. And you also get the tutor. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you also get is that really what he's called?
Yeah. Tutor.
Okay. Which is Jesserac in the novel. That's Alvin's. And he is going to help you with like the more, like school, like the more like learning things, like how to.
Wait, hold on. What do the parents like? I realize this is nitpicky, but in my opinion, I don't see any reason to have parents if you also have a tutor and you're already a fully formed adult. Because parents are they teach you the ways of the world, but they also raise you from when you're unable to take care of yourself to when you're an adult. So like, what's the point of parents? But also, maybe this will address it. Isn't the idea that isn't love an issue in Diaspar? Haven't they aren't they not cool? Like, haven't they not quite figured that out yet or something?
Yeah, it's pretty much absent. Like, okay. you can like care for somebody and have like relationships with them, but like love really isn't like a thing because they're just missing like those intimate connections.
Maybe the point of the parents is to be the new human's guide until they regain their memories.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
He says it in the book.
Okay. Because now...
Because I was about to say that.
Well, because I love that idea. So continue.
Totally.
And then when you hit it, we'll talk about
it. So the parents are there to help you. Like, they call them mother and father, but he says it in the book. That's not really what they are. They were barely... I think he said, like, they devoted, like, less than a third of their whole day, like, their time to, taking care of Alvin in any, sense. I think it's almost like the same thing, like in regular life. Like, your parents are going to teach you how to like brush your teeth and comb your hair.
He doesn't have teeth.
Eat your.
I'm just kidding.
And feed yourself and take care of yourself. Whereas school is going to what's the word? Nourish your brain.
Right. Okay.
So I think you need both because you need to know how to navigate as a human interrelating with other humans.
Okay.
So I think that's really all.
I just find it's just also...
They're like guides.
Okay.
They're not parents. They're guides. They call them parents, but they're not really parents at all.
Exactly. So what's the point? Especially Clarke then reiterates my point because the parents aren't characters. They're merely mentioned.
But
Right?
somebody has to teach him how to brush his hair and brush his teeth. I know he doesn't have any teeth.
I'm just saying, like, the tutor should be able to... You should also be able to stick
No.
your finger in a friggin' outlet and the computer tell you how to do it. But now we're getting nitpicky.
But I don't think that's
This is the kind of shit I think about when I read sci-fi.
Exactly. And I understand, and I think that there could be a version of that in another story. But in this particular story, that's not how things work.
Right.
So you just, like, it's how this particular civilization evolved.
Yes. So wait. So now I want to talk about that concept.
What? So when you're 20 years old, your parents and your
He
tutor.
even names a date. You're 20. That's when it
Yeah,
happens.
it's in the thing. The first 20 years of your life, you're
Only
just like
20
carefree.
years
You're like
out of 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Anyway, I love that concept. The idea
Yeah,
that you
so-
will be born not knowing that you
Right.
have all this information
Right.
already, but then to relearn it, I feel like that would be a
Yes.
better way to learn the world and to be like a good human.
yes, right.
You know?
I think it's totally cool instead of just walking right out, like acting as if it's the way you left off when you went back into the.
Yeah, because then you wouldn't learn anything. I think.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And I feel like, you could have, because it's that whole nature versus nurture concept.
Yes.
Yes. Like what, it's the only way that you could change in a society like
Dude,
this.
okay, it would be like if I got to the end of this Arthur C. Clarke science fiction podcast, and then I remembered that in my previous life, I had a podcast about murder mysteries, which I, in this life, completely and totally have no interest in.
Right.
So then I would hit that moment and I would say, wait a minute, I used to love murder mysteries.
The other thing I thought was really neat is the concept that before you go back to the Hall of Creation, you can choose what memories you want to keep and which ones you want to get rid of.
Yeah, that's a trip.
It's so wild.
I don't know if you should be trusting people with that. No, come on, because you should have to learn. You should have to have all your memories, so you learn from the
you can
bad
choo-
ones.
No, but there aren't any bad ones in
It's
this
fucking utopia.
Diaspar. Yeah, it doesn't. So it's like you can just choose what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. It's so interesting.
I do like it. Yes, certainly interesting.
This is why I was fascinated by this book. Like the minute I start reading it.
Okay, I'm happy that you were fascinated.
So when you're 20 years old.
Let's get to the train.
So
Come on.
Stop it. When you told me to explain the
Yes,
plot,
yes,
and you
I know, I
keep
know.
like
I'm sorry.
derailing the train.
Yes.
So when you're 20 years old, your parents, quote unquote parents, your life guides, and your tutor get together and they sort of say, so this is, here are your memories. They're going to start coming back and, blah. But in his situation, they had to explain to him that he wasn't going to have any of those.
It's like, listen, bro, we don't know what you are.
Exactly. Well, no, they do know what he is. He's a unique.
Well, yeah,
there have only
but-
been, weren't there 14 others
Yeah.
in the whole record of
Yeah, I
history
like
or
I like
whatever?
that idea too. How
Yeah.
uniques were thrown in there
purposefully designed.
just to mix up
Yes.
how things go.
Yes.
Because whoever planned this whole thing in the beginning
Right.
knew that shit would get stagnated.
Exactly, which is the same concept as what the Jester's for.
Yes, but he's short term.
Hadrian's get-
They explain that. I like marked the quote where they say like the jesters are short term disruption,
Exactly.
and the uniques are these long term, potentially future altering
Yes, definitely.
disruptors.
I liked the part when they said that they tried crime, but then you'd have to regulate crime, and so crime didn't work, so that's why they went with the Jester.
Wait, time out. Okay, I like that you said that, but we have to go back to a conversation that we had about utopia.
Yeah.
Because I thought of an example that supports my claim that utopia is no bueno.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Do you remember a little film? Some folks have seen it, called The Matrix.
Yeah.
Okay, in The Matrix, Agent Smith explains that the simulation the machines initially created was paradise.
Yeah.
and humans couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
We can't handle utopia.
Well, this book shows you can't handle it either.
Love it. Continue.
So, but this book does show that it can go on for a really long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So-
But, I'm sure 99% of the population would be like, hell yes,
Yeah.
I'm doing nothing.
Right.
But then 1% would be like, ugh. Remember when we weren't like this?
Yeah, totally. So the plot. So he always knew there was something different about himself.
Yeah.
So that didn't like really surprise him, but it did give him like a reason to start exploring that part of himself. So that's when he starts venturing out and ends up meeting Kadron, the jester, who he feels is going to be able to help him with his number one goal, which is to find a way out of this city.
Yes, and I just want to interrupt with one quick reading of
Yes,
a paragraph.
Yes.
Now listen, Alvin, began Calistron. This is the third time you've interrupted a saga. You broke the sequence yesterday by wanting to climb out of the Valley of Rainbows. And the day before, you upset everything by trying to get back to the origin in that time track we were exploring. If you won't keep the rules, you'll have to go by yourself.
Which is exactly what he does.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. I love that. And
Continue.
that's from the very beginning of the book.
Yeah, that's when they're in the video games, the sagas.
Right, the sagas.
Yeah.
And, like, how are you not, like, captivated by that? Like,
Because I've seen THX 1138, and I've seen Sausage Party, and I've seen Zootopia. And I've seen all these stories that are exactly this.
Ready Player One, that's what it reminded me of when he was in the sagas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to move
that
the plot forward here.
That he wants to now go and find out.
Yeah. So that's what you mean. So his number one goal is to get out of the city.
So then he
just wants out.
Right. And there's that pretty good moment that I remember for the first time I read the novel when he goes up to the top, the tower, and looks out from up high and to see the desert. I think when the sun goes down, right? And for the first time he sees the stars.
Yes.
Thought that part was pretty cool.
Yeah. No, he could see stars out of the Tower of Lorraine.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Right. Okay.
Remember he goes and there's like a grating?
Yeah, that's
It's
the
like a
Tower
vent?
that's the Tower
Okay.
of Lorraine. That's like everything. He always goes there. That's like his
Oh,
place
okay.
where he goes and he like peeks out and he sees the
Yeah.
desert and he sees the stars and he sees the night.
Total space dreamer.
100%.
Even if
100%.
Even if initially he only just wants to go into the
Right.
desert, to him, that's the same thing as it is to us. You don't
Right.
go there.
Exactly.
Okay.
So with Kadron's help, he ends up being able to interact with the central computer. And the central computer, they kind of gather that this is definitely like a plan, because the central computer at this point is kind of like, here are all the tools that you need to figure this out.
Yeah.
Whereas if it didn't want you to know, it wouldn't let you in.
Right.
There's a part where they're in remember the central computer allows them into that room where there's the mini version of the entire city,
Yes.
and they're hopping on the little command stations that are in the room, and they're able to change, like look all through the city, and then they
Yeah.
change it and they digress, and that's how they figure out how to do. But I don't know if you noticed, but Arthur C. Clarke 100% describes what was then to be Google Earth.
Yeah, or any time when you're playing a video game and you look at the map.
Right.
It like
Yeah.
how he describes it is exactly like when you pause a video game
Right.
and you go like look at the map or whatever and you can move the camera around the map like in 3D
Right.
and
But it's
zoom
even-
in and zoom out.
Yeah.
It's exactly what he describes.
Yeah. It's
So cool.
But I think more like a video game, but Google Earth, you can
Yeah.
do that. You can hop on a computer, you can zoom in to anywhere around the world
Right.
and see like the intricacies of whatever city or town or landscape you want to.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
Super a side note. So do you think that's the central computer or that's Diaspar on the cover of this novel?
Wait, let me see.
It kind of maybe it's Diaspar.
I haven't the vaguest idea what that is. And why does that guy not have any clothes on?
I don't know because it's fucking primordial. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what this is.
Okay, never mind.
So they figure out, him and Kadron figure out that the original like creator of the city, not in its beginning form, but in like how it began, was this, what is it, Yarlin Zay? Yeah. Yeah. So, which I also think is really cool. Again, like just as far as like a whole, like how good of like a story and a novel it is, in my opinion, is remember he went and like earlier went to the park and described the tomb of Yarlin and went through it. And then it turns out that like just full circle, that's the place that you need to go. So like we were introduced to it earlier and then we get brought back there.
Yeah.
And then they like, from there they end up finding like the spot to stand in that drops them down into the like old part of the city,
right,
that had been sort of hidden and sealed off, but not destroyed, which obviously was purposeful. And it's like, I imagine like a little train station, like it was like a big domed area with tunnels everywhere, and there's a map on the ground. And like all of this was so fascinating to me.
I love that you're loving it.
Like it was just so much fun, like reading this, like about this entirely imagined cool place. Like, and I was right there with him as an adventurer. Like,
cool.
What are you going to find around the corner?
Nice.
And then for it to like, so they follow the map and they realize only one thing is lit up, like one
additional destination.
Yeah. So like they see that like this was obviously a travel hub to go and visit all the other cities that existed on Earth at one point.
Yeah.
And the only one that's lit up is the one to Lice. I hate that we can't decide what it's called. I don't know.
I mean, it's a word with no vowels.
I know.
So
it's weird.
who knows? Lice. Lice just
lice.
reminds me of the thing that's bad.
Yeah, I know, you're right. So lice. Well, I'll say lice.
I mean, well, let's consider like diaspar lice, maybe.
Lice.
Just like the way you pronounce.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
but
tough.
I want to pause real quick on the train station.
Yeah.
One of the movies that I connect with this story that I did not make you guys watch is the animated film Zootopia.
Oh, that's right. You had mentioned it
at
a different point.
Just super briefly, Zootopia is about, and I watched it like a couple nights ago, is about, so it takes place in a world where no humans, just animals, but like the world looks like we built it, with like buildings and stuff like that, and they wear clothes, and they talk and speak English, and like the idea is that animals used to be the way they are now, where there's predators and there's prey. Now they live in harmony.
Utopia.
Like Zootopia.
Right.
But on the outskirts of Zootopia, it's more similar the way, and it's just amazing the amount of metaphors in this little children's movie.
Right.
Like, you think of the less populated, let's just talk about the United States since that's where we live, and that's what we can reference. The less populated part of the United States, like where we live, you assume they're more backwoods, right? They're more segregated. It's more like people are separated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The main character is a bunny rabbit. And bunny rabbits usually are carrot farmers. But this bunny rabbit wants to be a cop in Zootopia. And the bunny rabbit meets a fox at one point, and the fox is like, I still have my predator DNA in me, so don't fuck with me, little bunny. That kind of shit.
Right.
So then the bunny, the whole point is the bunny is Alvin.
Yeah.
The bunny says, no, I'm going to leave this place where I'm from, where all the rules are set. I'm going to go to Zootopia, and I'm going to become, I'm going to fulfill my destiny, which I see as being a cop.
Yeah.
But in this imagined world, only big, strong, aggressive animals, predator or prey, become cops.
Yeah.
So gorillas, ox, alligators, elephants, big, powerful animals, not bunny rabbits.
Yeah.
And one thing I mentioned to you, which is so cool about this novel, is how someone calls her cute.
Yeah.
And she goes, it's like, screech the record.
Yeah.
Excuse me, you can't call me cute. And what she says that I forgot is so brilliant. You know what she says first? She goes, a bunny can call another bunny cute, but you can't call me cute. And it's like, whoa, are we sure this is for children? So anyway, Back to the main point. Guess how the bunny rabbit gets to Zootopia?
How?
In a train.
Nice.
All right, continue with City and Stars.
Okay.
It's just one of the literal connections to me.
Right, yeah.
That she leaves home in a train,
In a train.
by herself.
Nice. Yeah. 'Cause
And,
that's
and
exactly-
goes to Zootopia
Yeah.
and meets a different version of Hilvar.
Right.
But anyway, continue.
So he gets in a train. And
36 minutes to Liss,
Yep. And
even though it's really far away,
but
right?
More interesting, I think, was the fact that, like, Kadron, he's a jester, so he's different than the other citizens of Diaspar.
Yep.
And he gets as far as he technically leaves the known part of the city. He's able to go underground. He's able to follow Alvin all the way to the station, but he cannot bring himself to get on that train. Whereas Alvin very easily steps right inside it.
Yeah, he's not a space dreamer.
Yeah. So, yeah, I loved it. It was like the countdown of time, and he like raced through the tunnels in this super fast train that floated over the rail. Remember,
Yeah.
it was like a monorail, but it wasn't on the rail. It was like hovering
Basically
over the rail.
a
It was
modern
awesome.
maglev.
Yes, I loved it. So when it pulls into Lice, I can't stop calling it that.
That's fine.
He gets out and he gets out of the station and he goes above ground, and it's like
Nature.
Yeah, like it's completely different. He's not in the desert. There's no artificial roof over his head. It's totally just the natural world, and
Yeah.
it's like thriving.
Yep.
As they walked deeper into the village, Alvin studied the men around him. They appeared kindly and intelligent, but these were virtues he had taken for granted all his life, and he was looking for ways in which they differed from a similar group in Diaspar. There were differences, but it was hard to define them. They were all somewhat taller than Alvin, and two of them showed the unmistakable marks of physical age. Their skins were very brown, and in all their movements they seemed to radiate a vigor and zest which Alvin found refreshing, though at the same time a little bewildering. He smiled as he remembered Kedron's prophecy that if he had ever reached Liss, he would find it exactly the same as Diaspar. The people of the village now watched with frank curiosity as Alvin followed his guides. There was no longer any pretense that took him for granted. Suddenly there were shrill, high-pitched shouts from the trees on the right, and a group of small, excited creatures burst out of the woods and crowded around Alvin. He stopped in utter amazement, unable to believe his eyes. Here was something that his world had lost so long ago that it lay in the realms of mythology. This was the way that life had once begun. These noisy, fascinating creatures were human children. Alvin watched them with wondering disbelief, and with another sensation which tugged at his heart, but which he could not yet identify. No other sight could have brought home to him so vividly his remoteness from the world he knew. Diaspar had paid, and paid in full, the price of immortality.
And all of a sudden, everything he's been told is a lie.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, although I did think about it, it's not that everything he was told was a lie, because nobody knew what was that. They just thought it, like, nobody knew.
Yeah, it's not
Like,
a
it wasn't
nefarious lie
Right, it wasn't even.
or malicious.
Well, and again, it's just the same as, like, no one ever, like, they didn't remember, like, no one ever talked about it. It was just like this thing you didn't even think about.
Yes, I agree for
Like,
sure.
Which again I think is really interesting, which is why I really like this, is that the usual thing is don't leave, don't go out there, don't do this. That doesn't exist. It's terrible out there. But, like, that wasn't even, like, how it was. Like,
yeah.
I just loved that difference.
I think is certainly something that deviates when attempting to compare this to one of the films we mentioned, which is THX,
Right.
which THX clearly exists in a world where it's intentional. Like, people are intentionally being oppressed. right?
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know?
We can talk about
Okay,
that later. I'm
that's
not
fine.
sure.
Yeah.
So, so when he gets to Lice, he follows a little path, goes to the village. It's gorgeous. It's fabulous. It's wonderful. He's like totally amazed because this
Hippies
is like
paradise.
Yeah, like this is like a total commune
Yep.
vibe. There's no big city. It's just like
It's like New Athens.
adorable little houses. It's just like totally awesome,
Yeah.
right? And you just said it's like New Athens, but I'm not even sure that that's true because remember one of the things that they did talk, one of the things that we talked about was how Utopia wouldn't have art, wouldn't have music, but that's one of the things that there's a definite point made multiple times in the beginning of the story in Diaspar that all of that 100% exists. And art is a huge part of their culture in Diaspar. So that's interesting. Whereas they don't talk about art at all in Lice.
True.
It's
I just think
more of a connection to the earth.
I just think it's a vibe. Look, remember you say in the episode about the sci-fi miniseries Childhood Zen that Utopia is often described as like going backwards to simpler times.
Yeah.
That's just the vibe that I get from Lice.
Definitely. Well, no, I agree, but you specifically said art, and I don't think they never talked about art.
Wait, I want to talk super quick. Okay, hold on. I have a mark about art since you mentioned it. Hold on. Let me find it.
It was the custom of the city's artists, and everyone in Diaspar was an artist at some time or another, to display their current productions along the side of the moving ways, so that the passers-by could admire their work. In this manner, it was usually only a few days before the entire population had critically examined any noteworthy creation and also expressed its views upon it. The resulting verdict recorded automatically by opinion sampling devices which no one had ever been able to suborn or deceive, and there had been enough attempts, decided the fate of the masterpiece. If there was a sufficiently affirmative vote, its matrix would go into the memory of the city so that anyone who wished at any future date could possess a reproduction utterly indistinguishable from the original. The less successful pieces went the way of all such works. They were either dissolved back into the original elements or ended in the homes of the artist's friends.
That is the internet.
Yeah.
Because you can go on the internet, you can type in the Mona Lisa and see it almost exactly as it is. Obviously, there's details in the original that you can't see on the internet. But my point is, that same year, some schmuck probably painted something that no one knows exists today. And you can't just go on the internet and recall it to see exactly what it is. Because as the guy just said, the opinion generators, or whatever the hell that was, determine that this is worth saving and this is not. And that's what we collectively have done by typing in the Mona Lisa into the internet, seeing it, and not even knowing what to type in, who that artist's next door neighbor who painted something, and it never got reproduced.
I think that's actually describes more appropriately like Instagram, where you could just like put photos and you could put your art up there on Instagram, and you can either like it or not like it, or
True.
scroll by it, or forget it, or save it and print it out on your own computer, or
True.
Yeah, and it's like you're being judged by your peers. It's exactly
you're
like,
right. Yeah.
You know?
Because that is more like any old schmuck can... You're right.
Right.
Because any ding-dong can hit that like button.
Yeah.
Same way anyone in Diaspar can either say yes or no, that art is good or bad.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then like whoever gets the most likes either goes viral or is forgotten.
Yeah. Okay. Dig it. Okay, so let's get to the thing in the lake.
We're not there yet.
Jesus, all right.
Right?
I
take my job seriously.
I'm like sitting...
You said explain the plot.
Okay,
I'm going through the plot.
All right.
So, so then he gets to Lice and he meets, what's her name?
Seranus.
Yes, Seranus, yes. Who, I think in my mind, I pronounce it Seranus. But who I immediately, in the movie that I have created in my mind of this, right? The person who plays Seranus is 120,000% Tilda Swinton.
I was gonna say that, dude. Gonna say that.
Yes, like
yeah.
I mean, like she's played like a million characters similar in
Right.
that fashion, but I was just
Yep.
like, oh. And then, of course, I thought like
She
I
would
would
be
definitely let her in my mind.
Doctor
but anyway.
Strange, dude.
Yes,
Remember,
exactly.
that's who
Yes,
she is.
that's exactly. Yes, I love it.
He
yes.
could totally play Alvin because he's weird looking.
You're totally right.
If you like shaved him or something. All right, anyway.
I didn't think about that. That's the number one thing you'd have to change in the movie is they'd have to have teeth.
Oh yeah.
I can't handle that. It's the teeth. Like
You're
I
right.
could
And
do
you
no
would okay,
fingernails, but like no
you
teeth.
You would think the telepathic ones would lose the teeth, and not
Yeah.
the ones who speak.
Well, but the other thing that doesn't make
They're
sense
more
is
pop,
why
pop,
would you not have teeth if you still eat?
I don't
It's
know.
so weird. Anyway, so he meets Serranus. He finds out all about lice and how it's different and how, like they're the ones who've kept the railway open and running. That the idea is that they'd stay hidden, that they would not make themselves known to the people of Diaspar, because that way only the best people in their mind would come out of Diaspar. They'd be the ones that they would want in their own community.
Another repeated Clarke concept, dude.
Which is?
Which is
how everyone leaves.
There is something amazing and next level within your grasp, yet veiled by a thin veil that you simply have to achieve something to remove that veil.
Right.
And then you are allowed to be witness to the wonders of whatever was veiled.
Yeah.
The Star Child or in Childhood's End. It's just a common Clarke thing, which I dig.
They're actually, when we get to towards the end.
Tomorrow we'll get to the end. Everything you've explained so far is like what I have firm grasp on and I understand.
Oh,
now
that's why you're trying to hurry me through this?
Now we're getting to the part where I'm going to have every sentence you say, I'm going to have a question.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Can we get to the thing in the lake?
So
Crater? Okay.
So he meets her son, Halavar, and they get on a little floating car, and they zoom around, and they go climb a mountain. And then when they're on top of the mountain, they see something crazy happening. A light orb shoots up into the sky, and they're like, oh my God, what was that?
Yeah,
and then they're like, I'm not even positive. I think they do explain it. But anyway, and then that happens, and then they're just like, okay, let's go follow that. Like, let's go explore. So him and Halvar they leave the trail, and they're just like, let's go here. And that's when they go to Shalmoraine.
Yes.
Shalmoraine, which is a giant crater.
Right. It's a fort used to be there.
Yes.
It's like the final battle on Earth apparently was fought there.
Right. Supposedly.
Yeah.
Because then they find out that's a lie. But anyway, so when they get down into the middle of this giant crater, that's when they find the lake, and they hear like the pulsating. They're like, "What is that?" And Halvar's like, "That's alive." And that's when they meet the polyp and the robot. Yeah,
and we also need to be very the differences and also benefits because they're different between Alvin and Hilvar. Pretty sure it's Hilvar. It's an Hilvar.
What did I just say?
Halvar. It doesn't matter.
Oh,
but the point is,
Hilvar. Yeah.
Hilvar is way more in touch with other living things because his society has created telepathy.
Oh, also,
so
did
it's
you know?
Pretty important.
This is funny. Did you catch the part where animals talk in lice?
No.
Yeah, they do. They speak
out loud.
Yeah, they do.
What?
Yep. Isn't that crazy?
All you people who think this is better than 2001, what are you smoking? What are you smoking?
It's an adventure story. That's what this is. It's an it's purely an adventure story, which is what I loved about it.
The great polyp had become the master's last disciple for a very simple reason. It was immortal. The billions of individual cells from which its body was built would die. But before that happened, they would have reproduced themselves. At long intervals, the monster would disintegrate into its myriad separate cells, which would go their own way and multiply by fission if their environment was suitable. During this phase, the polyp did not exist as a self-conscious, intelligent entity. Here, Alvin was irresistibly reminded of the manner in which the inhabitants of Diaspar spent their quiescent millenniums in the city's memory banks. In due time, some mysterious biological force brought the scattered components together again, and the polyp began a new cycle of existence. It returned to awareness and relocated its earlier lives, though often imperfectly, since accidents sometimes damaged the cells that carry the delicate patterns of memory.
I love that description of what the
Yeah.
polyp is.
The comparison.
I just-
isn't that? Do you remember 2061
Barely.
when they go to Europa?
I remember, like,
He explains there's
Yes.
one alien creature on Europa, and
Yeah.
it resembles
that.
that.
But again, I like just imagine in my mind like how friggin' cool that would be to see on a screen, like with our technology now. Like, can you imagine? Like, I just imagine like all these little creatures like coming together and like
Yeah.
building up, and then this crazy thing comes out of the like it was just really.
Yeah.
I loved reading about that, and I know like a lot of it's like it's kind of fantasy,
Yeah.
but it's real too. And
No,
you
that
know,
I like that. That makes sense.
It's really, I loved that whole part. It's like things really got going when you met the polyp.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted the polyp to mean more, though. I feel like the novel, like, starts going in one direction and then kind of just goes in a bunch of directions. Maybe.
No, I don't think so. So
What role does that polyp even play? Who is he?
It just needs to be there as the conveyor of information.
Okay.
He's a disciple, so his purpose is to spread the word of the master,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
The reason we need the master is so that we can have the spaceship. And the other reason why you need the polyp is because the robot won't communicate with them. Because the robot's been
Yes. Told to be-
sworn to
yeah.
secrecy, won't speak until the master returns. Will only talk to the master. So it's literally just like a catalyst for a story. Like there's no greater meaning. It's just a creature that exists on the earth. You know, they talk about all the different creatures and things that are different in life than they are like from what we know in the Dawn Ages. So obviously things have evolved. So it's just like I saw it as just like an interesting way to like read about the evolution of Earth and to help move the story along.
So the idea is that polyp thing is earthly? It's from Earth? It's not an alien?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's from Earth because
Okay.
it can only exist in that lake, and that lake is Earth. And I think it was the master, when the master came there, it was there.
And so it turned it into a believer?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. And so they were told that their idea was to stay, like the polyp and the robot were like, we have to like stay here and we're going to, you know, we need to
Wait
spread
for the master, right?
Yeah, they're going to wait for the master and they're going to wait to spread the good word of the master or whatever.
God, see, that in and of itself is a novel.
Definitely.
Maybe that's my problem, is I wished
Maybe.
that was like,
Yeah.
explored more.
Definitely.
Because there's like a whole chapter
that talks about
like religion.
Right.
And how,
right.
I forget, I marked the part. He says like, this creed would go the way of so many others.
Yeah.
But then it's not about that.
But I also think that it's like a story within the story, but it's the same sort of thing because remember, everything the master was saying was a lie. Like it wasn't true.
Yeah, he's like L. Ron Hubbard.
Right. But that goes to the greater story that we're in, The City in the Stars, where everything that these people have been told is a lie.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's like
so the polyp is Diaspar in the metaphor.
Yeah.
And each of the individual things that create the polyp are each of the people in Diaspar.
There you go.
All right. It's making sense.
Yeah.
now.
I mean, definitely. I think you could definitely read into it that way. Absolutely.
Okay.
I like that. So they decide to take the robot with them. He tricks. That's right. Alvin feels bad about it. He tricks the polyp and he tricks the robot so that the robot can leave, because the two of them were like interdependent on each other. But then
Right.
the polyp starts to fall apart because he's strained so much to communicate with these
Right, right.
guys. And but the robot follows them.
And he's again. I want to reiterate this importance of Hilvar.
Yeah.
All this information is conveyed through him, right? Because he is telepathic.
Is it, or is he actually speaking?
I don't know.
I thought the polyp was actually speaking.
Okay, maybe he.
I can't
That's
remember
fucking
that. I
weird,
don't
dude.
know.
If the polyp
No,
can
I
speak
think
English,
you're
I have a
right.
problem with that.
Yeah, no.
Because then what's the point of Hilvar?
I think you're right.
Because remember, there's often mentions of like the fact that like I love the part. Remember when they're up in the spaceship, and Alvin is like, oh, so we have to go back down and tell Lice that you're leaving, and Hilvar is like, I told them an hour ago, telepathically. That's the point of that
Right.
line, is to say I don't have to go there to tell them that,
No,
which
I
is
think-
cool.
Yeah.
Can you actually
Yes, I'm pretty sure you're right. He is
telepathy?
yes.
Can you tell me the thing that you read just now? Just tell me what chapter that's in, so I can just the chapter. You don't have to tell me the page number.
About the polyp?
The thing that you read.
Yeah, 13.
Chapter
it's
13,
The whole
okay.
Chapter 13 is the whole chapter that
Okay,
you're
okay.
talking. It's the story
The
within
polyp.
the story.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It says right here, the master, he had been of human origin, though his home was a planet circling one of the seven suns. Oh, yeah. That's actually funny that I just read that, knowing what you know by the end of the book. Interesting.
So what comes next?
Okay. So then they take the robot back to Lice.
Yeah, then Alvin does some robot surfing.
Oh,
Doesn't he
yeah.
hold on to him and he just goes?
Yeah. So when he gets back, well, remember he's given an ultimatum when we skipped over that part because I was being rushed. Alvin's given an ultimatum by Serranis. She says, you can either stay here in Lice and live your life and explore it, forever and whatever, or you can return to Diaspar, but we have to wipe all memory of this place from your brain. And Alvin's like having none of that.
Right.
He's just like, this is not happening.
He's just like, later.
Yeah, like I want to do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
So when they get back, she says, I've changed my mind. We've discussed it. You have to go back. You cannot stay here because of the disruption that he caused bringing the robot and, everything. She's like, you can't stay here. You have to go back and we're going to wipe your memory. We're also going to go, insert agents into,
I love
into
that idea.
Diaspar and
Love that
make
idea.
sure, that
That's
no
like
one,
PSG too.
even remembers any of what happened. So he's like, absolutely not doing this. And I really think a lot of it was Hilvar, is that he didn't want to forget Hilvar, the friendship that he had made, because that's a theme throughout this whole thing, that he can't connect with anybody. He always feels like a really deep down loneliness because he finds himself different in Diaspar. And then even though he doesn't he's not the same as anyone in Lice either, it's like he's finally able to connect with somebody.
Yeah.
So, so that's when he does the robot surfing, where he grabs hold of that sucker and he zips off.
Yeah.
And no one can catch him, and
Right.
they can't penetrate his mind, and whatever. So he ends up back in Diaspar,
Yep.
and everyone's not happy with him. They're quite upset. So they bring him to the council, and the council is like, okay, we've heard everything and that's lovely, but you're in trouble. We have to decide your fate. So what happens then?
I don't remember.
I can't remember, because he goes and I know. Oh God, well, how could I forget? So then he goes, he says, that's great. He's like, that's great, but I need to talk to the central computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're
And
like,
they let him.
Yeah. And they let him. And so that's where he goes and he gets to talk to the central computer. And I also that was another amazing scene that I was like, God, I would just love to see that room.
Okay, not only that, a concept in that scene that I loved is just the way Clarke describes it, is there's that invisible like sound barrier.
Oh,
when he,
yeah.
when
that
he needs to speak
when he needs to just
in
talk
private.
To him. Yeah.
And it's almost just the
Because
way
didn't one of the counselors, or wasn't Jesserac with him or something?
yeah, but just the way Clarke describes it, like
Yeah.
it's almost like the air around them became
Yeah.
so thick that it absorbed all the
Right.
sound.
Yeah, that was very
I just
cool.
thought that was very cool.
Yeah, I really liked everything. I loved everything that happened in that room. I thought it was really interesting the way
Yeah.
it was described and everything. And that's when he gets a central computer to essentially hack into the robot and try to release the lock that was placed on him.
Yeah.
And with some trickery on the central computer's part, he's able to do so, and Alvin is able to speak to the robot for the first time. Little cliffhanger. He's like, you got to ask him the question he always wanted to ask him, and it doesn't tell us what the question is, because then smug little Alvin, who got what he wanted, has to go back to the council, and they're just like, it's cool, like, we forgive you as long as, you never go back, and, we'll seal it up, and, whatever. You're young. You're unique. We forgive you, blah, blah, blah. So,
you exist for this purpose, yet we're going to
they're
make
just
it
like,
so you can't
it's
have
cool. Yeah. So, and then, he committed all these, like, terrible, things, like, he left the city, and he, like, told other people about it, but they're just like, it's fine, whatever. So, when he leaves, he's like, ha ha ha, and he runs back to the Tower of Lorraine, right? And that's when he sees that the grate is gone.
Jesserac showed no fear as they walked along the tunnel through which that cold wind blew forever into Diaspar. The tunnel had changed now. The stone grill that had blocked access to the outer world was gone. It served no structural purpose, and the central computer had removed it without comment at Alvin's request. Later, it might instruct the monitors to remember the grill again and bring it back into existence. But for the moment, the tunnel gaped, unfenced and unguarded in the sheer outer wall of the city. Not until Jesserac had almost reached the end of the air shaft did he realize that the outer world was now upon him. He looked at the widening circle of the sky, and his steps became more and more uncertain until they finally slowed to a halt. Alvin remembered how Illustra had turned and fled from the same spot, and he wondered if he could induce Jesserac to go any further. I am only asking you to look, he begged, not to leave the city. Surely you can manage to do that.
Remember?
Oh, so does that mean the city or / central computer itself wants him to leave?
Yes.
Oh.
So
okay.
the central, and the way it's described, it's so great. It's just like, it was probably just for a moment. It was just a little glitch. And if you went back the next day, it would be there again. But for that moment, it was gone. So he sends the robot out through the grate. And that's when the robot conjures up the spaceship.
It's like buried, right?
Yes. So it's basically, remember, it's like this beautiful, like, full circle. In the very beginning of the story, he talks about how the city was actually a lot larger, but a lot of it had been covered over by the sand.
Right.
So since it had been a port where spaceships used to come all the time, the spaceship was just there. It was just sitting there. So the master had arrived in Diaspar and traveled from Diaspar to Lais on the rail system, and then out to Chalmoraine and blah, blah, blah. So the spaceship was there the whole time. And it turns out that the robot is the the pilot of the ship. Yeah, like the brain of the ship.
I like the whole idea of that the city can be edited.
Yes, I thought that was so neat.
There was one part, I think, where he's looking at that model.
Yep.
And he would watch it change, like in fast motion.
Yep, because they take it back in time through the centuries.
And then it'll be like a building's there, and then it's gone. And
Yeah.
there's another one, like moves right next door.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it was so neat. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, this novel is just full of
Honestly,
so many amazing things.
The way you describe it makes it sound so much more interesting than while I was reading it. Like, I didn't make a lot of the connections that you're making.
Yeah.
I think it's just from the very start, I just am just a little bit disinterested.
Yeah.
Hello, Space Dreamers. Sorry to interrupt, but we got an ad for you. Here it comes.
Introducing the very first flashlight to be powered by darkness. Have you ever wondered what lurks in the shadows? What hides in the darkness? Terrible things, horrible creatures, even genuine aliens. But also the fuel that powers our flashlights. How did our engineers do it, you ask? How do we take the absence of something and use it to fuel a light source? Well, the universe is full of mysteries, but now none that hide in the dark. Illuminate the world around you by a darkness-powered flashlight today.
I think that this is the kind of book that you definitely, even though I know, like, it's hard because it's like, it's fantasy, but it's based on reality, even though that seems totally weird.
Yeah.
But it's something that you just have to, like, completely immerse yourself in this world.
Yeah.
You know, like, you can't.
But I think it also, if you're, I don't think you can get back into it if you've fallen out of it early on, because the moment you just described, where he looks out through the grate,
Yeah.
and the ship is there,
Yeah.
like, I remember there being a ship, and I remember thinking, well, if he's gonna leave Earth, he needs a ship, so there must be one. But when you describe it, it sounds like a really cool story moment.
It was epic. You were just like, oh my God, because think about it. We've gotten to the point in the book where he's like, in some sense, he's like done everything that he's supposed to do. He found a way out of the city. He went and he did it, and he discovered a new city, and then he like discovered other characters like the polyp, and like learned about the master, and like, you know, all this stuff, and then so you're kind of like, where is this going? Like,
Yeah.
You know, like, what else?
I think if you keep it as a metaphor, as like, the story works if he doesn't leave Earth. Like, it's just about breaking out of your imagined bonds, right? And exploring the wider world that you were told doesn't exist. It doesn't have to be outside of Earth for it to pretty much be the same story.
Well, yeah, you could end the story there, but then there's so much more of the story. And so, like, that was also, like, that was another reason why I really like this, is because it's like, that was one part of the story. Then the other part of the story is finding out from that point when he gets that spaceship, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is, whether he knows it or not, his journey is now going to be to find out what really happened.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he takes the spaceship and he goes straight back to Lice. And
Yes.
and he
Why does he do that? Is it to just go get Hilvar?
Yeah, it's to go get Hilvar. There's definitely this is definitely a little bromance.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, 100%. So he because he knows he knows that Hilvar's the only person who's going to be, like, open to this.
Yeah, and so I also want to comment that, remember I texted you earlier in the week and said, gee, this novel, by definition, only has one space dreamer.
Yeah.
Alvin.
Yeah.
But then Hilvar is totally one as well.
He...
By influence, but still.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if you willingly get on a spaceship,
oh, yeah,
you're a space dreamer.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so then the council at, you know, like the you know, governing body of Lice is meeting there as well, just as it had been in Diaspar, because, like, all of this is just insane to everybody. And he goes as the robot first, and then he's like, as long as you can promise I'm going to be safe, I'll come in person. And so he goes in person, but he hides the ship so that, like, he tells the ship to go away because he doesn't want anyone to see the ship. And then when he realizes everybody's cool, he's like, you know, okay, like, here's the ship, and, you know, I want Hilvar to come with me. And then they get on the ship and they go up into space.
Yep.
And it's so awesome the way that he describes when they start, like, pulling away from the Earth, and he starts, like, describing how, like, nobody alive on the surface of the Earth, like, has ever seen the Earth from this position, nor have they ever even dreamed of it or wanted to do it.
And that perfectly mirrors reality when Clarke wrote this novel.
Yeah.
Minus the dreaming, because there was plenty of dreamers at that time.
One of the things, I think it's like in the very, it's like the very beginning. Oh, it's the end of the first chapter.
Yeah.
When he says, when they're talking about why no one in Diaspar even wants or can conceive or even thinks about leaving. And it says there is only one explanation. Far back in time, perhaps before Diaspar was founded, something had happened that had not only destroyed man's curiosity and ambition, but had sent him homeward from the stars to cower for shelter in the tiny closed world of Earth's last city. He had renounced the universe and returned to the artificial womb of Diaspar, the flaming, invincible urge that had once driven him over the galaxy into the islands of mist beyond had altogether died. No ships had entered the solar system for countless eons. Out there among the stars, the descendants of man might still be building empires and wrecking suns. Earth never knew nor cared. Earth did not, but Alvin did. Like, that's the end of the first chapter. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And so
I love like that. That's wrecking suns.
yes.
Like, that's badass.
Yes. And so when he's like I just like couldn't help but like be just like, I mean, how epic is that? After eons, billions of years, returning to where we started.
I think it's beyond epic. It would be epic if it was 100 years. It's
Yeah.
beyond epic.
Yeah. Which is, I think, why it's so exciting. Like now that we're starting to like really get some space travel like back going. It's like the same like exciting feeling. Like this kind of stuff excites people.
Yeah. But remember Dominique's metaphor?
No, what?
That he's French.
The marina.
Yeah. How we're still in the marina.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, we're still in the marina.
So that scene in the book, they're in the marina, but they decide to take off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, okay. So do you if you want to, we can continue in such detail, or like we could leave a little mystery, or like, do you really want to get into like full? Well, I'm curious about. Never mind. Let's because I want to talk about the two AIs because I love that idea, the two matterless AIs that humanity created.
Right. So the real quick, so they go like real quick synopsis of the end is that's when the like interstellar part of the book takes place, where they zip off to the seven suns, which is it turns out as they're approaching, they're like, this is man-made.
Yeah, and they refer to it as the center of the universe. Is that true, or do they just say that?
I'm not sure.
Okay, continue.
I'm not. I don't know if that's like refuted or
okay.
true or whatever. But yeah, so it's totally man-made.
Yeah,
and that's when, like when they get there, that's when like even just rereading that bit about the master, like that's where the master came from. Like people, like there were people living there in that created little solar system of the seven suns. People were living on the so that's why they say that a master was of human origin. And then remember the master had dying words, and the dying words were about the colors of the light on the, from the suns or something. I never thought he was crazy, but really what he was talking about was where he lived, his home,
right,
which was the seven suns.
It was like
little solar system.
There's no nighttime, but just different shades of colored light.
Yeah,
I guess it's weird.
Yeah, just like imagining that. Wouldn't you love to see that? Wouldn't you love for someone to go through that text with a fine-tooth comb and put it on a screen? It would be so beautiful.
We got to get, what's his name to do it? Dominique.
Definitely. So, so they end up like going from planet to planet in this little system, and they're like searching desperately for life, intelligent life. And they do find life, but not intelligent. And
I did love that description. Just classic alien life description of that like initially they think it's a forest, but then they learn that there's actually an ocean beneath it.
Right.
There's just so much vegetation on the surface that it looks like land.
Yeah. And so and there's like creatures that live under it, and like it was amazing. It was like this little like just this little like journey through the stars.
I like how he described it though, how on that planet there was too much life.
Right, yes.
He was like, this is a war happening all the time.
Yes.
A war that is too slow to watch with your human eye.
Right.
But it's a war, and it's unrelenting.
He was talking about some of the plants that are actually like trying to like, they're like floating.
Yeah.
They've like developed ways to like exist in the
they're like,
sky.
we don't want to fight anymore. Let's just float.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
It was so like reading all of those little descriptions of all of the places that they visited were amazing. And then when they're finally on like the moon of like another planet, that's when Hilvar is like, whoa,
There's intelligence.
something's here. Something has changed. Something's coming at us. And that's when they meet
Vandemond.
Vandemond. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Who is the
more benevolent yet less intelligent AI created by humans and more recent. Correct?
yeah, and he has no physical form.
Yeah, but he's like a baby.
Yeah.
He's super intelligent, but he it's like he holds all the knowledge, but he has the intellect of a toddler.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But what's so cool, without just being like plot, is I just love the idea that, like, okay, humans wanted to create, they were like shackled by matter, or I forget how he describes it.
Yes.
It's like a war against matter.
right.
So you want to create an AI or an intelligence that has no physical form, that is just pure consciousness.
Right.
So they did that, but he describes it as that it was insane.
Yeah.
Not that it was evil, but that it was just insane.
Right.
You know, it's almost like people talk shit about that movie Jurassic World, okay, which is the 4th Jurassic Park movie. Dude, I love that movie, okay? And partly because of the sci-fi that is explored in it, in that the dinosaur that they create, the Indominus Rex, it's like, because they talk about how it was raised in captivity, right? So this is technically an AI. Well, not. I mean, it's created by humans, but it's a amalgamy of other dinosaurs. So it's not natural, is my point. It's not AI, but it's not natural.
Yeah, there's got to be a word for that. What is it? Oh, it's genetically modified.
Right, exactly. But the point
Yeah.
is, it doesn't exist in nature. This
Yeah.
combination of genes shouldn't exist in nature. I guess that's the point of the whole
Right, but it
entire
is still
fucking story.
natural.
Okay, but anyway.
You have to be you get there's a difference because
Right.
AI is artificial intelligence.
But the point is,
Yeah.
and the characters make this point to say that it didn't grow up with any other peers. It didn't
Yeah.
grow up with any siblings, so
Right.
it doesn't know its relation to other living things.
Yeah.
No dinosaur or animal is evil,
Yeah.
but it's like you could call this dinosaur, this is Dominus Rex. It's fucking insane. It's like an insane baby who doesn't know that it can kill at
Right.
the slightest touch
Yeah.
to any other living thing.
Right.
So it's like it reminds me of this evil AI or this insane AI that they created, that like, and that's what Chris Pratt says in Jurassic World is this animal's killing for sport. It's killing because it just realized that it has the ability to kill, and it doesn't know its place in the food chain, nor that a food chain ever existed because it gets fed every day.
Right. So you're talking about what they refer to as the mad mind.
Yes.
That was the first one that they made.
Exactly. Who is insane, and they had to trap it with the black sun.
Yeah. So they stuck him on a black sun and he's just hanging out there.
Whatever that even means.
Yeah, we're not sure. But this Vandemond
Is the second one they created.
is the second one they created, learning from their mistakes. The first one.
Yeah.
And this one is actually like perfection.
Right, but there is an emphasis that it's like a child, in that
Yeah.
it's
Well,
not,
because-
it's you can influence it, right, to do what you want it to do, kind of. What else? Well, then what
no.
makes it childlike?
That compared to the lifespan of even the Diaspars, this guy is going to last for ever.
Okay, so even
Like,
though it's
he's
been
like
alive
infinity.
for billions of years, okay.
Right.
The other thing is, why do you think Vandemond is a he? I mean, if you have no matter, like,
Yeah.
why even say he?
Isn't that weird?
Is it just because it's old timey 1950s,
Yeah.
and the author's a male? I don't know.
Yeah, I it's very strange because it is
Not personal. Yeah.
right. I
You-
mean,
you don't call
it's
an intelligence an it.
right, which is why we currently in the discussion of, people's preferred pronouns, there's no it. It's they, them.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how you would even, like, how do you
Yeah.
describe something that is sexless, that I mean, fuck, how do you describe something that is matterless? Like that alone.
Yeah,
Like there's
yeah.
no gender involved in that.
Exactly.
At all.
I don't. I think it's just because it's born out of our human minds, and we're obsessed with gender and sex and identifying things and putting labels on it. And, it's like we didn't, I mean, even now we're struggling with it. We're much better than we were before, but.
And Clarke has in his lifetime gone out of his way to in the novel The Hammer of God, there's like a little moment where he goes out of his way to say that obviously there's plenty of problems with the stories in the Bible, but how the actual fuck does a virgin birth produce a male?
Yeah, like genetically it doesn't make sense.
Wouldn't a virgin birth produce a female?
Right.
But anyway, my point is he went out of his way to make that point in a later novel.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Black Sun. Oh, and how Vandemond is
he's just a so
you called him perfection. How he's perfection?
Well, yeah, because when humankind set out to create this matterless being, their first thing didn't work.
Right.
I mean, they created it, but it was all messed up. They call it the mad mind.
Maybe that was against the fall of night, and Vandemond is the city in the stars.
Yeah, right. So no, I just say perfection, like in their eyes, like it was perfection. Like they accomplished what they had set out to do.
Got it.
I'm not saying he's like perfect.
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
not saying
okay.
There's no commentary on that.
Right.
But the most important thing about Vandemond is that he stays in Lice because Lice can the great minds can speak with it.
Yes.
Yeah, because he's very difficult. Like Hilvar was having a hard time communicating with him because he's an infant.
Mm-hmm.
So everything is there. It's just not in like any kind of like all the memories of the universe are there. It's just not like in any kind of accessible form. And Vandemond can't communicate that because he's a baby.
True. Yes.
So they need the great minds of Lice to help like guide the story out of him.
Right.
Yeah. So the most important thing about the existence of Vandemond for this story is that he has all the truth within him. And that's how both Diaspar and Lice find out that everything they've been told, everything in their collective history that they know about why things are the way they are is a complete and total lie.
Right.
Yeah.
I do find it funny at the end remember when they have the little amphitheater?
Yeah.
And the guy he's basically relaying what they've learned from Vandemond.
Yeah.
And he says straight up, he's like, yeah, we're not like, we're hazy on the details.
Yeah.
It's like the whole story is about how what you're told isn't true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you're just going to be told from someone else who also isn't the one who saw it, but who is reading the mind of someone who holds all the information.
Yeah.
But you're even admitting while you're relaying the story that you don't even know if you have all the detail. It's like I personally don't trust that character to be able to fully understand everything Vandemond has to say.
Yeah, I think
there's just too many untrustworthy, because Vandemond's a child.
Right, but I mean, and they describe it like there are certain things that they definitely know,
right,
and there are certain things that are hazy. So like they like, definitely a lot of it is fact.
Okay,
I don't think that we need to like read into all of that. I love at the end when they are doing going through like all of the lies and all of the things that have happened, you end up with like all of these like real like Clarke themes, I think.
Like what?
Well, first, like, there's telepathy, I think, throughout the whole thing. Like, that's absolutely a theme.
Mhm.
Like, being able to communicate without speaking.
Yeah.
And then...
And I have found that Clarke always talks about telepathy when it is juxtaposed with a being who does not possess it. Often. Anytime I see telepathy in a Clarke novel, it's always met by someone who doesn't possess it himself or herself. Just an observation.
Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, that's
it's the opposite. They're opposites.
Right. I was going to say that's what makes the whole concept interesting.
Yeah, and like remember the story I told you and Mallory about the short story where you have the opposites, where it's the people who have telepathy but no ability to manipulate their environment, who meet people who have no telepathy but can manipulate their environment.
Yeah.
It's always a juxtaposition. So anyway.
Well, it's interesting, like, so telepathy is always like a thing, I feel like, that like shows up often.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a line in the novel that made me think, like, maybe this is what the obsession is about. And it's simply, they did not realize what they were missing, meaning the people who can't communicate telepathically.
Yeah.
They could not understand the warm sense of community, the feeling of belonging, which linked everyone together in the telepathic society of lice. And I think that speaks greatly to like what people are always looking for, you know? And it might be that, you know, maybe, you know, Clarke couldn't
connect
yeah
with people.
Yeah. And
Maybe.
So maybe that's like that's how I see it. Like, it's so hard for people to connect, like, and today even more than ever, you know, even more than the 50s, like, which is also not true because we have all these like modes of connecting, but it's like they still like further isolate us.
Maybe Clarke foresaw our current like situation where we're all now with technology living in Diaspar where we can instantly connect with each other. But, you know, like the true old souls are seeking real connection.
Yeah.
Which is what he leaves to find. And once he's out of Diaspar, what does he find? A true friend in Ilvar.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting. I think just the fact that he left his home of Britain
Yep.
and went to, what was it, Sri Lanka?
Yes.
That he was searching for a community that he felt he belonged in, you know?
Yes.
And like, would he be the first person that this ever happened to? Absolutely not. I think it's like a human condition kind of thing.
Right.
You know, like I feel like we, you know, feel our best when we feel connected and we feel like we belong and we don't feel like the outsider or, you know, the strange one or, you know, so.
A Corellan among humans.
Right. Yeah. And so it's interesting because, you know, like I feel like it's heavy on the telepathy. You know, this book, it's in Childhood's End, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even, you know, what I remember from, you know, 2001 Space Odyssey, I mean, the whole end of it, it doesn't happen like, you know, like it doesn't happen in like out loud, like, you know, like it's like internal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and then also just the whole concept of these, you know, bodiless creatures. Yeah. Consciousness. Yeah. I mean, that's like a theme too.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just like something that pops up like all the time.
Yeah. It's like, as I've said before, the final reveal of the full 4-book Space Odyssey cycle is that the beings who created the monolith are in search of minds.
Right.
And they have attained, I think it's assumed that they have attained this matterless consciousness, but they are seeking out others to give give this gift to.
And isn't that essentially like what I gather from Childhood's End with the Overmind?
Yes.
I mean, that's not
Pretty much same thing.
Yeah,
we,
it's
we
not
brought
like
that
a
up.
physical form.
Yeah, in the
right.
episode.
And then there's telepathy in that the kids are communicating
Yeah.
telepathically, and I don't know,
I think.
it's just-
I mean, that's the ideal,
yeah,
like, way to, like, it's the ideal, not end point, but eventuality of evolution. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. It's like I'm working my body right now talking. If I didn't, like, I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And maybe maybe there is more connectivity if we can just like all of the consciousnesses and the minds can just mingle instead of actually having to like reach out. You're
Yeah.
just all there together.
And I do like it, when he first gets to Lice.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first thing Serenus says to him is like, we're not going to penetrate your mind unless you
Yeah.
want us to.
Right.
Like there is an amount of respect
Yeah.
in that, like, when you're made of matter, we have, you have like your personal bubble.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm only going to enter your personal bubble if
Yeah.
you give me permission or we know each other really well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Also at the end he revisits the other concept that all the great minds will like always leave Earth. There's a like I feel like it's come up in Sands of Mars.
Earthlight.
It came up in Earthlight, where like Earth is going to be struggling because everyone who's worth a damn is going to be out there exploring the great beyond.
Yeah. I feel like not to get political, but
Yeah.
like, or not political, but just like, I feel like if you're the kind of person to fully believe what you are saying when the words, "This is the greatest country in the world," come out of your mouth,
Mm-hmm.
you've probably never been to any other country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like, there couldn't possibly be anything better than this. So I'm not even going to leave to find out if that which I believe is true.
Yeah. Like
You know what I mean?
Like Diaspar.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, it's not that they're kind of pitted against each other, but neither one is the best solution.
Yeah.
They both hold.
Oh, Diaspar
Great
seems all right,
things.
man. I feel like I might be the kind of person who might, like, even though in reality, yes, I hunger for knowledge. I want to know more.
Mm-hmm.
But in this imagined future, like, Diaspar seems all right.
So the
If I
only
didn't
thing-
know any better and
well,
all I knew
here's
was
the-
Diaspar, fuck yeah, born perfect as an adult, like,
Yeah,
and you live for 1,000
and-
years. That sounds awesome.
And then that's the other thing is that remember it goes into great detail about how like what your like the things like that your mind can be occupied with. Remember he's like talking about Jesserac, starts going over like all of the prime numbers and every like
Oh, yeah.
he's like that'll like entertain him for like centuries or whatever. Like it's so funny. But see, I think the biggest difference is like I agree. I think there'd be plenty to do and explore in Diaspar, except the one thing it lacks is the natural world,
Yeah.
which
Well-
is the only reason why Lice is more interesting to me.
Yeah. I also find it interesting how, like, how do they call them, what do they call them, adventures or something, sagas? Like, that's a video game.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you were to, I'm sure if you were to do your little calculations to figure, like, which countries in the world play have enough privilege to be chilling out and play the most video games, it would be the most like privileged countries, right? It would be
Yeah.
countries like Diaspar who
Right.
are the nearest to this like dystopia, or I'm sorry, utopia.
Yeah.
So like, you get what I'm saying, right? Like if you live in a privileged place, you have the time to sit on your ass and play video games like me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if
Yes.
you're in some
Right.
country that's not as privileged as a Western country, like you're probably lucky to have internet.
Yeah.
So
It's funny because I read some interesting things. I was just curious, like, what some thoughts were on this novel, because I think that there's like there's a lot going on in it outside of it being like an adventure story. I think there's a lot going on. And one of the things that I was interested to read is there's speculation that coming from the 50s, I think we touched on this the last time we talked about like what the world was like in the 50s, like communism being a big deal, Cold War, we'd just gotten done with, you know, World War II, that like it's kind of, the book kind of talks about like viewpoints as far as like Lice is communism and Diaspar is like the capitalist empire.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of like, you know, and it's like what, like, because Lice is looked at as like more primitive and, you know, like Diaspar, it's, I don't know, it's just like you could delve into all of that crazy stuff.
I agree for sure.
You know.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I'm not entirely sure the article that I read was even like put like the novel in a good light. I think it was kind of like, this is really bougie.
Bougie? What's that mean?
Yeah, like the you know, that like the idea, like the idea of like you know, being privileged enough, like Alvin being privileged enough to just like be the, you know, determined explorer. He can just go out and like do all this stuff. Like, who does he think he is? And like all this, like, I don't know.
You know what, dude? Okay, it's funny you say that because now thinking about it, maybe that's another problem I have with this novel. Alvin is a little bit of a Mary Sue.
A Mary Sue? Who's Mary Sue?
Is a character who never does anything wrong.
Yeah.
Who, like, is faced with challenges and hardly even remotely struggles and overcomes them all.
Right.
He just, maybe that's, I mean, you call it an adventure story, but dude, it's just like boom, 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 boom. He goes from never having ever left his city until like 150 pages later, he's light years away.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
well, there is talk in the book about fate, destiny.
Yeah.
You know, like once he's, you know, once he's like fulfilled his destiny, then he can continue on with the rest of his life. And then talking about like, you know, does he really have free will, or was this all part of the plan in the first place? So yeah.
You have to, what happened to the other uniques? Is it?
They never say.
Yeah.
They never say.
You got to wonder that they just, maybe they weren't up to the task to leave.
Yeah. I mean, not even.
Does Lice say that any of them ever visited?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then what?
So,
they probably got
they
sent back with their memories wiped.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe they were all Alvin.
Oh, dude, I never even thought about that.
And he's been just having his memory wiped every time. That's why he has no memories.
I don't know. Remember, there's a part where he stops for a minute and he's like, "Wait, am I Yarlin?"
Yeah.
Zay. What is
Yarlin Zay.
Zay. Yeah, I was like, ooh, is that something interesting? And then I was like, oh no, it's probably not.
Yeah. That
didn't come to fruition. That would be in the televised version of all of this.
Right.
Yeah. I like how what is her name? Alistra, how she's like an integral part of like the first like 10 chapters, and then she literally disappears.
Okay, that's another slight issue I had too, is because there is a moment where you follow him out of Diaspar, and then I think it's when the two of them go down underground, and then it cuts back to her, and she is hiding behind a column or something,
right, yeah.
and she looks and they're gone.
Right.
So I expected it to follow her to cut back and forth between Alvin and her, but she's just gone.
No, that's not where she disappears. Because remember, she's there when Kadron comes back and she harasses him.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just figured it would have followed her. Like maybe that's how Alvin would have been discovered. But no, it's just all Alvin just doing everything right.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, but that was another, literally the only issue I have with Childhood's End is how everything is so segmented, and there's very rarely cutting back and forth between chapters from like this group of people. It's just like, here's a chunk of this person followed by another chunk of this person. You know, there's never any cutting back and forth.
Yeah. I think, what is it called? Is it foreshadowing? when you like when something happens in the beginning of the story that
Yeah.
like leads to something big that happens in the
Yes.
end. I think I appreciated a lot of that in this book.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's what makes it like, yeah, like less Arthur C. Clarke and more something else, like why it would be a standalone story for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone listening to this or you would like a crash course in foreshadowing,
Yeah.
you simply need to watch the film Shaun of the Dead, because there is
right.
no film in existence or
I've heard-
story that does more
Yeah.
brilliant fucking foreshadowing than that fucking movie.
I've heard of that. I have only seen that movie, unfortunately, once. I mean, most people see it a million times. I saw it once. So it's like, I didn't. You're making faces.
The movie's amazing.
I know. Like, but I've never seen it again to know that. But I've read about that and like that.
Dude, let me just
It's
give one perfect example.
crazy, yeah.
One perfect example. In the beginning, so the movie is, you've got three people that live together. There's the two
Yeah.
best friends. There's the chubby one, and there's Sean.
Yeah.
And then they live with this guy who has like a good job and hates them because they're lazy and like to play video games and drink all the time. And the chubby one is the most lazy, and so the guy who has the good job says, if you want to live like an animal, you go live in the shed. Last scene in the movie, the fat guy is a zombie and he's living in the shed,
That's so funny.
and they're
Yeah.
playing video games.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Or just like how he puts his pen in his pocket and it leaks the red ink,
Right.
and everyone through the whole beginning is, you've got red on you. And then by the end of the fucking movie, he's covered in red because it's blood, because it's a fucking brilliant zombie movie. Anyway, speaking of zombie movies, are we done with The City and the Stars?
You look like you want to be.
Okay. Can I read that book in 10 years from now and not have to read it again? No, I'm just kidding. We all love Clarke here. The movie I want to tell you about is a zombie movie,
Oh, really?
but I think we should save it to the end. Hi, Space Dreamers. Quick question. Have you or have you not ever been to the British Museum of Art? Because they have a new exhibit that you simply must check out. And here's an ad that'll tell you all about it.
The British Museum of Art has opened a new exhibit that will blow you away, To the Orbit of Jupiter. A decade after discovering the ancient Jovian statue known as the Ambassador, Professor Forster has given it over to our museum. The Jovians, or creatures from Culture X, left their statue as a greeting to all humankind once we achieved interplanetary spaceflight, so we are displaying it in our museum absolutely free for citizens of Earth and the Moon. Come one, come all to see the Lizard Man statue in all its glory, all the way from Jupiter 5. The Ambassador has waited 5 million years and traveled 700 million kilometers to greet you. Don't leave him waiting. Get your free tickets now.
Let's start with Sausage Party, because I have nothing to say about that film.
What? How, what? Dude,
Okay,
the whole
so
time
listen.
I wanted to. Okay, listen.
Listen.
You know, Alvin reminds me of a certain type of food.
Listen,
I think it's a sausage.
I absolutely appreciate 100% the similarity between this story and that story. But as a film, just a film, even as an animated film, I don't know. It was just, I even love all of the people involved in the making of that movie. And I just thought it was trash.
What? Really?
Yeah, I
You-
might
okay,
have gotten like a chuckle here and there,
but, dude,
I didn't even
minus-
think it was funny.
You don't think that is a extremely clever script?
I don't know. I feel like I haven't watched it in a while, but I feel like I got more out of Dogma.
Okay. Yeah.
What's his name? Kevin Smith?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I feel like there are plenty of other, like, movies out there about religion.
But-
and, I mean...
I think there are even like I love when he like just even the metaphors are all so good, like the non-perishables. How the non-perishables are the ones who have the answers because they've been alive for forever, so they know.
Yeah.
And how he's like, well, where did the story of the gods come from, or whatever? And he's like, I made it up.
Yeah.
It's like, well, humans made that shit up.
Yeah.
Religion. It's called religion.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I like how I like how Gum is like the genius I mean, they explain it's because he lived with a genius, but like gum really is an outlier in the food world. You don't swallow it. It has calories. You chew it, you know? The only problem with that movie, though, I mean, we don't have to talk a lot about it because you didn't like it, but like the only problem with it is that in the end, you're food.
Yeah.
You have no other end than to be eaten. So that's why that ridiculous ending happens where they bring up the actors.
Right.
Because you can't,
Yes.
what are you going to do? Get back on the shelf like everything's fine? No, you're going to get bought and you're going to get eaten.
Yeah. And you
But-
can't run away forever. I mean,
Yeah.
although, I mean, I guess, that is, I just said you can't run away forever. Like, it's the same with, I mean, technically it's the same with people. Like, we have an end. Like, you can't escape it. Like, try as you might.
Yeah.
Have as many orgies as you want. You're still, smoke as much weed as you want. Like, you can't escape that final fate. And so religion is the way we deal with it.
Yeah.
We make it less scary.
You really think that movie was trash?
Yeah, I get it. I liked it. I think it's
Dude,
great, but
what
like
about-
it was just awful. Okay,
There's
no,
even just like
no.
the differences, like the bagel and the thing from the Middle East, like that's a fucking like 1,000-year struggle, dude. That they perfectly pictured in a raunchy animated movie about food. You don't think that's pretty smart, intelligent,
I mean,
clever?
Yeah, but I mean, like, it was just so everything else was surrounded by such ridiculousness that
I
it
agree.
just didn't
You know what's-
penetrate me
okay,
at all.
You know what is
No
more
pun intended.
You know what's more ridiculous
What?
than sentient talking food?
What?
Every fucking story in the Bible. The burning bush. The guy in the whale. It's all ridiculous. It's just as ridiculous as what it's parodying.
Well, I'm not disputing that. I
Okay.
just wasn't thrilled by the film.
Okay, let's go lowest common denominator. Did you notice the Terminator reference?
What was it? The gum?
When he shot the gum
Yes.
and then he like formed and it played the music like dun 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 dun. The gum's like, you cannot beat me. It's so funny.
Yes. Like I said, there were some chuckles. I had some chuckles, but like there wasn't anything that I was like, ho, 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 or like, oh my God, that was amazing. Like it was just, I don't know, man. Maybe I just wasn't in the right frame of mind. I don't think so, though.
I don't know. I was just blown away by everyone involved. It's just all just humor, like sex humor, and saying you put fuck in any sentence and all of a sudden it's funny.
Yeah.
And I just felt like the metaphor worked so well. He's like, oh, they're gods. Like,
Yes.
like you
Well,
want them
yeah.
to take you. And
That's
it's like,
what-
really, they're the ones who are going to eat you.
Yeah. Like and they still refer to them as gods, like throughout the entire
Yeah.
thing. It's great. No, like that's what I'm saying. Like it wasn't
it's
lost
great?
on me. Oh, stop it.
I was just kidding.
It wasn't lost on me. Like the fact that it was a smart idea and that,
Yeah.
I just wasn't impressed by its execution. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Did Mallory like it?
I don't think she was I think she thought it was better than me, but better than I did, but I don't think that she was
right.
overly enthused.
I like the part though too where the bagel and what was the other guy? The Middle Eastern. He's like a
Was he
falafel or something.
pita bread?
Pita bread.
I don't know.
How they had that like
Yeah, I think
touching.
it was pita bread. Yeah.
They had like that touching moment where they're like, yeah, and then at the end he was like, yeah, but fuck you, because like that's like the world, you know what I mean? Like we're all humans, and you can have a connection with another human, but then when you find out that their allegiance is to
doesn't.
whatever, you're like,
Right.
well, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, it
I've been
doesn't.
told to say fuck you, so fuck you, even though we're friends.
Yeah, like your personal experiences can't surmount like hundreds of years of.
There's that amazing scene in War Horse, which is World War I, where the horse is stuck in the barbed wire in the middle of the battlefield, and then the German guy and the American guy meet in the middle and work together to free the horse.
Oh,
He goes,
the horsey.
"You speak good English." I speak English well. It's so good. It's so good. But
I
anyway,
remember that part. I don't
Yeah.
remember that. I was more focused on the poor horsey.
yeah.
I think it's interesting though that we've been talking about all these film references, but the one film reference we haven't talked about is The Village.
Yeah. What about it?
It's like,
True. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's really, I think.
Who's Alvin? Well, I get what you're saying, the concept, yes. But
Yeah.
do you see that parallel? Does the village have an Alvin? The blind girl, she leaves, but
Who's the one? Who's the one who gets over the wall first?
isn't that the girl?
Yeah.
I don't know. No,
Yeah.
you're right,
But
though.
definitely, I mean, because that entire thing is just like lie upon lie upon lie.
Yeah.
I mean, song and dance lies, like they do, they dress up like beasts. And I mean, it's crazy. Like, I think
Yeah.
of all the things we've talked about, I think like the heart of that resonates the most with me.
Yeah.
I think mostly because of the fear involved.
Okay.
in that.
It's another one that is still one of my, I love this sci-fi movie,
Mhm.
Oblivion. Do you remember that movie?
I don't know.
Tom Cruise?
Oh, I know I've seen it, but
Oh, it's so good.
I can't conjure any images. What?
Okay, so basically, the cinematography. Okay, it's not a perfect movie, and the guy who directed it directed Tron, which is Tron Legacy, which is not a good movie.
Yeah.
But the cinematography in Oblivion is fucking gorgeous, dude. Okay, so it's post-apocalypse, right? Like the world. Okay, so basically, the world is humans live up in a spaceship.
Oh, I remember this movie. So good.
Yeah.
So good.
And so what does he think he's doing?
Oh, so good. Oh my God, it was so good. Yes, he thinks he's doing.
He thinks that he's just keeping the terraforming things in order. Like he's checking
Yeah.
machinery.
Yeah.
And the big lie is that what's floating above Earth is not humanity's haven. It's what destroyed the Earth.
Yeah.
And he is working for it to do its bidding,
Right.
not to do whatever he's doing that he thinks is the benefit of humans.
That
Remember?
movie was so good.
Oh, the
yes.
movie's fucking so good,
So
dude.
good.
So good. People who talk shit about Tom Cruise, man, I don't know. You don't watch sci-fi, apparently.
Yeah, I know.
Tom Cruise is in, like,
Yeah.
every sci-fi movie that he's in is fire.
Yeah.
Like, but
I remember it was Minority Report was the movie that I was like, oh, like Tom Cruise can do good sci-fi.
okay, funny.
Like I didn't originally watch that movie because I was like, oh, Tom Cruise, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I saw it and I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. So then we can talk. I mean, I don't know how much you want to talk about THX, but let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You like it?
Yeah. Do we want to talk about what I had mentioned to you as soon as I watched it? I was so unbelievably furious
Okay.
when that film was over and I realized I'd watched the updated, edited director's cut.
Yeah, but it still looks like it doesn't belong in any time period when you watch it, right?
So I don't know what, I was like really mad when I've calmed down since then. I'm
Okay.
like thinking more logically, but I guess my problem is that
You wanted to watch the Against the Fall of Night version.
yeah, I didn't think about it that
Sorry,
way, but
continue.
yeah, no, you're this again fits in with our theme here, because it just like I think it just bothers me when things get like messed with. Like I wanted to see what the original, like not because like I understand that like like as a creator you're gonna want to make things better. You gonna want to do things that you couldn't do when you first did something because of limits of technology or viewpoints at the time or whatnot. But that movie made an impact on a lot of people. It had to have. I wanted to see what that was.
Yeah.
And it's the same. So I grew up with Star Wars, loved it. It was part of my childhood, loved it. Once Mallory, who didn't like sci-fi, mostly because of such things as Star Wars and Star Trek,
Yep.
discovered that she did like science fiction, I said, well, let's watch Star Wars. Like, it was so, like, I'm like, it's good. Like, I like the original. I could care less about the ones that followed, but the original, what is it? Is it 4 movies? 3? 3. Sorry.
Episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Sorry.
You don't have to apologize to me. I don't give a shit.
I'm just apologizing to everyone out there who knows more about Star Wars than I do, except for that they were just great movies that I watched as a child and really, like, sparked my, you know, imagination and, you know, things like that. So we watched them together. I was like, let's watch these. Like, I haven't watched them in forever. Let's watch them, blah, blah. And in the middle of one of them, I'm like, wait a minute. This wasn't part of the original movie. I'm like, what are we watching right now?
I bet it was the part where Han Solo talks to Jabba.
No, it wasn't that. It was
Okay,
like,
continue.
it was just like a creature. Like, they were like riding a creature. It was like a
probably like a
bull-
CGI creature.
Yeah, and I was just like, what is this foolishness, you know? And so that's really what it is like, that movie made an impression. Like, it was what it was when it was first created.
Yeah.
That's equally as important as what you do to it later. So me watching the fixed up, spruced up version bothered me. I think I would have been fine if I watched it after I had seen the original version, but it really bothered me. And then I found online a step-by-step where it shows scene by scene what exactly was changed.
Quite extensive.
It was unbelievable. I mean, I was
Like George
appalled.
Lucas, like, dude, part of me, it's like you either have way too much fucking time on your hands, George, or you are like almost like next level visionary artist in that you're going to go through your own work with a fine-tooth comb and fix the teeniest, tiniest little details.
Yeah.
Like some of those things that are changed are like what you see on a computer screen within the movie.
Yes.
That's not even the focal point. And
Yeah.
he went in there and he changed it.
Yeah.
Like it's either you're crazy, dude, and you need to move
Right.
on, or you're a visionary beyond.
Yeah.
Like you're a different kind of filmmaker.
Right. And part of my issue is that some of the scenes that I noticed, like the differences, I feel like I would have felt a different way about the scene if it had been different, like original versus, you know, and it's like,
I think why I don't think it's as a big of a deal for me
yeah.
is because it is not a normal movie.
I love not normal movies. I love weird movies. And I feel like if they had left it alone, it would have been even weirder.
No, it wouldn't, because there's plenty movies that were made in the 70s all kind of look the same. This is this weird fucking weird ass version of 70s aesthetic, dude, with like to our standards now today, because that thing was redone in like when CGI wasn't very good.
Yeah.
You know, like the CGI is better than what you could do in the 70s when he did it.
Yeah.
But now to look back and you see like it's like a 70s color filter over this 1999 CGI, and it's like, what in the actual fuck am I watching? You know? Because when you take like Star Wars, as iconic and whatever as it is, it's a straightforward. It's like you have humans, and then you have like whatever you can't do with practical effects. You had to make some shitty puppet in the 80s, and then he replaced that shit with CGI, right? It's like a normal movie, though. But with THX, it's just so weird in and of itself that if you add weird CGI, it just doesn't bother me.
I feel like some of I'm not even talking about, my issues aren't even with the CGI. It's like some of the scenes that I saw, it would be like him, just Robert Duvall, right? Just Robert Duvall alone, like him, like working at his station, which I think would speak to the isolation that you feel when you're experiencing this movie. And what they did was added added depth to the scene, added like more stuff in the background.
I did notice that.
And those were the things that bothered me. I was like, I think I would have like felt differently about this place and this person if I had seen it in a more barren setting, especially when they have that whole scene where they're in the white room.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was barren. So it's like, why would everything else be filled up?
Yeah, I don't know.
So moving on from that, that movie is like horrifying. Like, if that would ever be a potential future, it looks terrible.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's why
you know,
he escapes.
oh yeah, but nobody else does.
He's certainly Alvin.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just,
It's a good movie, though, right?
yeah. I mean, it's just terrible. It's depressing. It's depressing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So, I mean, dude, like, think about the contrast.
What contrast?
That and Star Wars,
Oh, that's wild.
right?
Oh yeah.
And how, I mean, maybe
See-
I mean, okay, it could be partially the hipster in me, but that fucking movie is so much better than anything Star Wars has ever produced, ever.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like you could compare it to like how, I kept saying that The City and the Stars would make like an incredibly epic film, that would be Star Wars, but like some of Arthur C. Clarke's other books are even more meaningful and important,
Right.
but they wouldn't, translate.
To a great film.
Yeah, and I mean, I think THX is a noteworthy film, but it just like shows that like there's like such there's such contrast, you know, like I don't know. Yeah, I can't believe that came out of the mind of the same person who created.
It's like that's
Star
the
Wars.
first.
It's wild.
It's the first thing he
Yeah.
did out of film school.
That's
was
so
to make
crazy.
THX 1.
Okay, which would also make sense because that's totally some crap that would come out of art school.
Yeah, right. Well, apparently, yeah, it was
Or
a
film
short.
school.
It was a short film that he made in film school.
I gotcha.
And then
Yeah.
when he was out of school, he was like, "All right, let's make a whole movie out of this."
Yeah, it definitely like reeks of like, oh, I'm a film student.
Yeah, and not only that, it also like.
And I'm allowed to say these things because I did go to art school.
Yeah.
And the crap that went on in art school does not often have any relevance to the real world.
Okay. Would you
Or
rather?
I should say, I
okay.
shouldn't say the real world. I should say the capitalist world. Let's put it
Would
that way.
you rather sit through the worst things you sat through in art school or watch Sausage Party again?
Oh, I'd go back to art school.
What? What?
There's some amazing crap.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Two moments in THX that I want to talk about that I fucking love.
Yeah.
That aren't even big moments. I just love them.
Yeah.
I love when there's that one shot early when the robot is walking and then is like bumping into the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Fucking love that, dude.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then another part so when I was in school, I was an English and writing major.
Mm-hmm.
And so I discovered that movie when I was in school. I mean, and it's just funny how you're saying that you were comparing it to like art school. It's like if I watched that movie today, maybe I would have been like, that was the boringest shit I've ever seen.
No, I don't think so.
Well, but you know what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
I was in college. I was
Right.
like, I was
Your
like,
mind was wide open.
Yeah.
You
And the-
were
yeah, and the
new and young and fresh. Yeah.
and the only movies available to me were the movies in my college library.
yeah. Yeah.
So it was all these art house weird shit.
Right.
So anyway, so my point is I stole this moment for a short story that I wrote. I mean, I'll admit it now, but like totally stole it, dude.
Oh.
Because I wrote a story that took place in a dystopian future. Like right after that, I saw that movie.
Yeah.
And one of the things I stole was at the end how when one of the robots dies and it shows robots in service and it's like 35,000
Yeah.
and it just ticks one off.
Yes.
And it's like it's weird that that's at the end of the movie because towards the end of the movie it's supposed to be like a little more hopeful, like this dude's going to escape. But you get this realization that you kill one robot, you have made zero dent. You have not made a dent.
Well, of course you haven't made a dent because that's the most screwed up thing about the movie is that that's what he's making. He's making the robots that are then policing him.
You know what? Wow. That's exactly what my story was about. No, my story was, I remember it now because you just said that. My story took place in that world right before the robots became their guards.
Yeah.
So these people in my story were building the robots, not
Yeah.
knowing what they were for.
Oh.
And then the moment in the story occurred, like it was a short story. So like the climax of the short story was the moment the robots became the overlords, basically.
Yeah.
And all the characters in my story realized,
What they
that's
been
what we
doing.
were building. We were
Ooh.
building our own prison cells.
Right.
Damn. Okay. I was lifting
There's-
a lot of shit back then.
There is absolutely nothing hopeful about that film.
Dude,
Because
he sees the
even when
sun.
Yeah, but
And
even
he's
when
like-
he gets out, what is he gonna do?
I don't know, dude. Explore.
Like, and I mean, you got to wonder how that whole setup like came to fruition.
I
Like,
know.
what in the world went on that seemed like a good idea?
Well, remember earlier I mentioned that it was like intentional, like it was some evil force was probably keeping those people in their situation, and you said probably maybe not.
In Diaspar?
No, in THX.
Oh yeah.
So what do you think?
I don't
mean,
think some evil
I don't think
force,
there's-
but no, I think humans did that to themselves in
Well,
that
yeah,
film.
but my point is, are there humans that are living in comfort up high, looking down on the rest of humanity who are doing all this dirty work in dystopia? Is my point.
See,
Or do you think it's just an evolution of humanity and we all live that way?
I feel like it's probably that. Like we all just like almost like Diaspar. You just become, although not like, Diaspar is like the beautiful, fabulous, wonderful
Right,
version of this, but like where you just become part of like a machine, you just end up doing, you just do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Like you just do the task that you're given. You just follow the rules.
I would be curious to think what Clarke thought of THX, only because it's weird to talk about these movies. Like 71, like that movie came out 1 year before Rama was published.
He probably watched it.
Yeah, he probably. Well, I don't know if he loved it, but yeah, that's my point. It's
Yeah.
like all this.
Yeah.
Like I've also. I wonder what Clarke thought of Star Wars, because like that's totally his like
Oh,
time,
yeah. Wow.
But I don't know.
Curious. THX 1138
I say yeah. THX 1138.
1138, and they called her Lou, but
LUH.
LUH.
I don't know what her numbers were.
Yeah, it's interesting. You think it's the like Adam and Eve, because she's the one who tempted him,
Oh yeah.
and there is the element of religion in that show.
Could you be more specific?
I know.
So good, dude.
And it's like on a repeat, like, and the whole point is
It's just like a picture of
to be-
Jesus.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
It's like, what the hell? That part's awesome. You
That,
just
but
like go
that
in the-
picture of Jesus is like as real as
yeah.
our Jesus.
Yeah, and then at the end, it's just like, be productive.
Yeah.
What are all the things that is? It's
don't
just
know.
it's so crazy. But yeah, do you think it's like I think it's like a little Adam and Eve thing, because she's the one, like the story's about him, but she was the catalyst. She was the one
Yeah.
who said, like, and then of course I don't even know what becomes of her. I guess they say she's terminated or whatever.
Duvall is amazing in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
God, dude,
He's
I
incredible.
love. Remember the scene, and it's where I pulled that picture that I've been posting on Instagram, where he's in that little religion kiosk,
Yeah.
and he's leaning over, and he's got like his hands in his head. He's like, and he's talking about her,
Yeah.
and he's very angry and frustrated.
Yeah.
And he's just like, what does she want from me? And he's
Yeah.
like crying, and then he like throws up in there.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're gonna clean that up. It's nasty.
He's going through withdrawals from
Oh,
from not taking the medication.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I fucking love that movie.
And then how they just like, because I mean, the thing is it's just no one's telling them not to take the medicine. I mean, to take the medicine, they're just taking it.
Right. Dude, what about that scene where he's like writhing around in that white area, and the people those two guys are talking about what they're doing to him?
Yeah, it's like
It's so good.
it's so wild. There's a lot of I noticed that there was a lot of like physicality in the movie, like very specific movements I thought were really interesting. Like that whole scene, it was just,
And I love that, dude. It's so random. And dude, Donald Pleasance is the man. Like
who's that one?
The guy. He's the guy was like, I think would be very good roommates. That guy in the beginning.
Oh, that guy is wild.
That guy as an
Wicked
actor, he's
creepy.
so good, dude. Oh yeah, I love when they're in that room and they run into that guy who says he's like a program. Remember?
Oh yeah. What?
And how he's like, you got some food? Let me get some of that food. It's just like, it's so, I don't know, dude. That movie's so weird. Like, I feel like it's like, the film for me is, there are moments that are just so like the nature of the film itself. It's just like a drawn out silence. And then there's these moments that are like really engaging between characters.
Right.
Like when that guy shows up, it's like you instantly like him because all of a sudden you have this person who's like acting normal.
Yeah.
He's like, what's up, guys?
Yeah.
He's like, you got some food? I'm starving.
And then
he's like, oh, it's this way.
Yeah, how do you get out of here? Oh, over here.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because listening to us talk about this, it seems like a normal movie, but it's like, it's really not.
Nah.
It's really not. But it's awesome. I love movies like that. Like, just
but come on,
real
dude. The ending is
weird
so
and-
good.
It's totally good.
Like, and especially how it it's like, it starts out, this movie, it's like this no-budget movie where it's just people in white rooms. And then it's the most badass, crazy, futuristic sci-fi car chase you've ever seen.
Yeah, but we probably should have seen it when it was originally made because it looks like it was not that interesting.
Back then?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad he redid it. I really don't care that movie was remade. I don't.
My favorite part at the end is when they just recall the robot. They're just like, over budget. Okay. We lost one.
Yeah, dude. Okay, that part at the end. Okay.
I love it.
The part at the end when he's climbing up the thing and they're chasing him up the ladder is so interesting, dude, because you wonder, like, but right before they give up, they're like, just come back down the ladder. We won't hurt you.
Right.
Like, imagine if he did just come back down the ladder.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if that's ever happened. And it's just so interesting.
Right.
It's like, I mean, maybe there's no intention behind it, but to the society, it's important that you don't leave.
Yeah.
But they're robots. Like, they don't really care. They're just doing what they're programmed to do.
Yeah.
And he's fighting for his very, like, life and livelihood.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck you, robots. Like, come on up with me. Enjoy the sun.
Yeah.
I don't know. But.
Yeah. The final scene of that film is epic.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's still completely depressing in my opinion, but
and I
don't think there's a future for him.
Especially, but dude, yeah, no, you're right. But like that, just the shot itself is so weird. Yeah. Like how the sun is massive and he does, like you were saying, he does weird movements. He he's does this like, weird stretch thing, and then it's just like credits,
right?
And you're like, oh, he made it, but we don't even know what he's seeing.
And like, how do we know that like he didn't? What he was escaping wasn't actually like the lesser of the evils.
Dude, who knows?
Who knows? It was definitely. I love movies that were made in that time period. I love the aesthetic. I love that futuristic, modern, clean, sterile aesthetic. For science fiction, I definitely enjoyed watching it. Revisited and touched up as it was still it was definitely a really good film that absolutely made you think.
All right, so to cap this off, let's address what some people. So before I started, between the last recording and this recording, I joined a Facebook group called Arthur C. Clarke, and I told the people in it, like, I started this podcast all about Arthur C. Clarke, so this is the perfect place to advertise it or just to tell people about it. So anyway, before we started recording, I posted a picture of the book that we're talking about in the group, and I said, hey guys, I'm recording this episode about The City and the Stars. I would assume most of you have read it, so leave your comments and we will address them at the end of the recording. So that's what we're doing. So if you want to... First of all, if you love Arthur C. Clarke, there's a cool group on Facebook called Arthur C. Clarke. You should go join it. They just talk about Arthur C. Clarke and books and movies and all that cool stuff. But then I'm in that group now, so if you want to join it, you can communicate with me, and I would love to do this for every episode. I just, like I said, talk about leave a comment below with your thoughts on the novel, important ideas, concepts we should be sure to go over in the recording. And it looks like I have two people left comments basically of exactly what I wanted them to, which is just concepts.
Yeah.
Someone noted that they have a copy with the same cover. That's cool. But anyway, so Bob says, by my assessment, Clarke's very best novel, and for that matter, one of the very best science fiction books ever. I love rereading it and remain stunned each time. One minor complaint: it's made clear why Diaspar remains stable and relatively unchanged over a billion years, but there's no real explanation as to why Lys manages the same. I think the story contains the elements for an explanation, but it isn't articulated. What do you think, Amy?
I would agree.
It's funny. I'd never thought of this, but I would agree too, because the human mind, as we know, cannot comprehend millions of years or billions of years.
Right.
So if you're told in the beginning of a story, oh, this is millions of years go by, blah, 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 you just kind of hear it and you go, that's different, and then you just read.
Right.
But what you don't take into account is, yes, something like Diaspar could certainly last that long by its very nature, but Lys or Lys for a billion years to remain like that?
Yeah, and I think
that's crazy.
And I think that he's also right, because Clarke spends an awful lot of time in the novel explaining every little detail of Diaspar, so you get a full round picture.
You're right.
Whereas Lys, there's a little bit less, and that is definitely a very good point. I do think, because I bought it, obviously. I was like, oh yeah, of course it existed simultaneously. I believe that he's right. It's in there somewhere. It's just not fully articulated.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because there's plenty of things you said that I didn't pick up on.
Right.
But I do think it's almost natural that it would happen that way, because I think the whole point of Lys, minus the fact that there's telepathy, the point of it is that it's more like what we know.
Yeah.
So you, by nature, have to explain in full detail something that does not exist, which is Diaspar.
Right.
So it's not like... So in my opinion, I'm saying, I don't think Clarke felt I need to explain Diaspar and forgot to explain Lys. It's like Diaspar is so fully explained because it doesn't exist in our world.
Yeah, it needs explanation.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
So thank you, Bob, for that. I dig it. Very cool that I don't know who that person is, and they affected my podcast, and we're all Clarke lovers, and that's cool. And neither of us thought of that issue, and it's cool that we got to touch on it. Somebody named David commented, first science fiction novel I ever read. Reread it a few weeks ago. Quite unlike most Clarke because of the scale in space and time. Clearly influenced, as ACC admits, by Olaf Stapledon. Weird how things happen, because in my exploration of other authors to cover, in the last week, I was made aware of someone named Olaf Stapledon.
Nice.
So I only know that reference because of things that I was doing this past week. I don't know. It's just crazy.
Yeah. And I've never heard of that author, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love stuff like this, because it's like when you relate to one thing and you really enjoy it, and then someone says, yeah, it's like this other thing.
Yeah. Then
you can just find so many more things that you're going to enjoy.
Right. And this Olaf guy is a precursor to Clarke.
Really?
I'm 99% sure that I'm thinking, I'm going to look him up real quick.
Yeah.
Yes. So this guy wrote, so I was looking for other authors to do in the Space Dreamers podcast once I'm finished with Arthur C. Clarke. And I came upon this Olaf guy. Mm-hmm. And so he wrote a novel, right? And this is why he's saying this, because he's saying this is way larger in scope and scale than other Clarke novels, as we've talked about, millions, billions of years.
Yeah.
This Olaf dude wrote a novel that it's literally the history of the Earth. And it goes like our history to billion, way far in the future.
Ooh.
And I could be getting this wrong, so I'm sorry, anyone reading. I have every intention of educating myself, but this is just what I gleaned from when I did my research. But then what he then did was he went, yeah, that's not enough of a scale. And so he did a separate novel that's the fucking whole universe.
Ooh.
From beginning to end. He wrote a novel.
Wow.
And he was writing in like the 30s.
That's an undertaking.
So when Clarke was, whatever, like 15 years old
Yeah,
in
he
school,
could've-
this dude
Right.
was writing novels that were about the birth and death of our universe.
Wow.
Yeah. So thank you to everyone who commented and gave us more food for thought. I dig it.
Definitely.
I'm trying to think if I have enough breath left in my lungs to tell you what I wanted to tell you about.
I'm sorry, my plot exploration of the city and the stars got a little crazy.
No, it's cool. I dig it. Especially for people, I don't know, it's easy enough to say, like, oh, the Sands of Mars, it's about taking off from Earth, going to the moon, going to Mars. You can kind of imagine that.
Yeah.
But with this, it needs explanation. Because otherwise you'd be like, they found a polyp? What? Excuse me? Silent robot?
The Hall of Creation, huh?
Yeah.
Fully formed 20-year-olds?
Yeah, right. Well, the movie I wanted to mention, we'll just, if I have the energy, I'll keep going. Because, I mean, as of right now, this isn't the longest episode we've ever recorded. So it's not like we're at the 4-hour mark. So you're familiar with, do you know who George A. Romero is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Night of the Living Dead,
Yep.
Dawn of the Dead,
Yep.
Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
Have you seen all three?
I feel like I have.
So do you remember Day of the Dead? Because that's what I'm talking about.
What's the, help me with that one.
Okay,
Like-
so Day of the Dead is, in my opinion, well, I don't know. Okay. I used to be obsessed with zombie movies, so like this shit was like in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I'm not really obsessed anymore.
Yeah.
But I have, like, Night of the Living Dead is excellent.
Yeah.
But it's very much, the first modern zombie movie. It's
Right.
very
Right.
restricted, you know what I mean,
Right.
to like a house. It's black and white.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dawn of the Dead, which I think, at least from the title, which, I mean, that's a fucking incredible title for anything. Dawn of the Dead. It's a great title.
Yeah.
I think is like the most famous. It's my least favorite in the trilogy.
Yeah.
That's the one in the mall.
Okay, I remember that
Which
one.
they made the remake. Zack Snyder did the remake in 2004, which is decent, but
Oh.
that's not
No, there was a remake.
really. So you don't know much about George A. Romero's original
jeez.
zombie trilogy.
I've definitely
do you?
seen the first one.
Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead, I've absolutely
Okay,
seen.
so
Yeah.
the idea is Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. You see how that time works?
Yes.
Okay. So, but at the same time, it's not one night, dawn, day. It's So, and I'm not sure how far in the future Day of the Dead takes place, but Day of the Dead is such a good movie, dude.
Yeah.
And not because of the zombies, because of the sci-fi.
Ah.
So it's far in the future, right?
Yeah.
And what I love about it too is that it starts right in the middle of everything that it's about.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really know what led up to what is happening. It's talked about, but it's not in full detail. So basically, the movie opens with it's a girl and two men in a helicopter, and they fly. It's clear they're in Florida.
Yeah.
Well, it's not clear. It looks like Florida.
Yeah.
And later you see a map and it's Florida. It's like, oh, it makes sense why it looked like they were in Miami.
There you go.
So anyway, so they go to this city, and the whole point of their being is just to find survivors, right? So this is like this is zombies have won. It's not a battle anymore.
okay.
It's like
All right.
the zombies outpopulate humans, okay? So they get to this like city, and the whole point is like, okay, we need to try to find survivors. Like that's kind of, I guess, whatever you do in that point in the zombie apocalypse. But okay, side note, you know the song M1A1 by Gorillaz? And it opens with hello.
Oh, okay. Yes.
That's not even a sample. That is Day of the Dead. That is the opening scene of Day of the Dead.
Oh.
Audibly, it's exactly what you hear.
Oh.
And granted, they took it and turned it into a fucking sick movie or a sick song. But my point is, so that's the opening. They don't find anyone, so they go back to where they came from, which you don't know where they came from because the movie starts where they're already gone.
Right.
So it's this army base, and it's like underground. Actually,
Yeah.
it's not even an army. I don't know what the army's there, but it's like a thing that's underground, so they're safe from the zombies.
Yeah.
So they go down underground, but right when they get there, they look over and there's like a graveyard, and they're like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god, there's a new grave!" Like shit. So then they go down underground, and they find out that the new grave is the guy who was in charge when they left.
Oh.
the guy who was in charge when they left was a lot nicer than the guy who's in charge now.
Oh, no.
So the guy who's in so the whole point, again, you learn as it goes that the whole point, the reason that these people are where they are is because it's a science expedition, but they need a military escort. So what do you think happens? The military's like, what the fuck are you guys doing in there? We don't want to be here anymore, so can we get the fuck out of here? Because what you're doing is not helping us at all. But, you know, obviously it's like, well, you guys are fucking military. Like, you just think with your guns. Like, you don't care. Like, you don't care about science. Like, we're scientists, blah, blah, blah. So, again, I know I gave, if anyone's interested in a course on how to do foreshadowing with Shaun of the Dead, if you want a course on how to do overacting, but overacting that grows on you and becomes fucking amazing, then you need to watch Day of the Dead. Everyone in this movie screams their lines.
Really?
It's so weird,
Oh
dude.
my
And like
God.
the main antagonist, the main human antagonist is like the commander of the army, the escort army. And when I say army, there's like 8 guys. There's like 8 dudes with guns and army fatigues. And then there's like 4 scientists. That's it. So he's like, you know, she's like, the commander guy that was here before, he was, you know, the whole, like, he was all about this. Like, you're supposed to, that was, and he's like, well, he's dead now and I'm in charge. And it's just like, okay, dude, why are you screaming? So, but the army guys are pissed, dude, because the army guys' whole job, like, the reason they're there is because they have like a bunch of zombies kind of corralled in one area.
Yeah.
And the scientist guy, the whole point you learn of the scientists is that they're trying to figure out how, like, the idea is that it's like, it's not a war anymore. We're not fighting the zombies. We need to find a way to live with them.
Oh.
Because that's all you can do.
Right.
They outpopulate us.
Yeah.
So the scientist, like, literally has a zombie chained up, and he's fucking domesticating it.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because it's very subtle, dude. The zombie's not talking or anything. Like, he just gives him shit from his old life, and you just see this, like, he picks up a phone and puts it where you put a phone. And so he's like, they remember. So it's just cool, man. It's like sci-fi, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the army guys are pissed because they have to bring the zombies from the corral to the scientists. So every time they do that, it's extremely dangerous.
Oh, right.
It's and every scene is very good when they have to do that.
Yeah.
It's very good. But anyway, dude, I don't even know. I'm gonna make Heather watch it. Because eventually you learn that, like, because in the beginning you're supposed to not root. You're rooting against these army guys because they're such assholes. It's like overacting. It's like over characterizing as assholes. It's like, we get it. You're dicks. The main character's a woman. They make jokes about, you know, we're gonna fucking rape you, stuff like that. It's horrible shit, dude. End of the world, horrible human shit. Yeah. But so anyway, But then you learn, like, the scientist, the guy who's making all this progress, and it's really cool, too, because one of the characters later, it's like, they're not going to kill me because I'm the pilot. I'm the only one who can get us out of here. Yeah. They're not going to kill the scientist, the main scientist, because he can talk circles around all of them. And you see, the script is very good, dude. The dialogue's very good. Yeah. The scientist, like, he just talks circles around these army guys. Yeah. You could have this gun to him, and he's just like, we're leaving this joint. And the scientist is like, oh, where are you going to go? He's like, you can't go anywhere. You know what I mean? It's so good, dude. I love that movie. But the point is, dude, there's almost no zombie action, dude. Yeah. It's strictly sci-fi. It's humans in a post-apocalyptic world fucking just trying to live together. Yeah. And then by the end, you know, obviously by the end, like, the zombie, you know, you get your zombie shit. Right. You know, things go wrong and the zombies, you know. And there's some amazing gore, dude. Oh, my God. Really? I don't like horror movies. Yeah. I don't. I have no interest, really.
Love horror movies.
Dude. Okay,
Love
there's
them.
all right, there's this one scene. Yeah. A lot of the people get killed in very similar ways. It's like, I feel like they figured out this dope practical effect, and they were like, they're all getting killed this way because it looks so good. So they're laying on the ground, and they barely put up a fight, and these zombies who have the strength of humans just fucking, like, separate their limbs just so easily. It's like, what am I looking like? That it looks like pulled pork. So anyway, they pull a guy's head off, and you see it get all stringy, you know, as the head's separating, and he's screaming. Okay, And dude, it's so good and it's so fucking disturbing. As the neck is being separated, the scream gets extremely high pitched and then it cuts out.
Oh, stop.
And then the mouth is still kind of in the screaming. The face still looks like it's screaming, but the windpipe's been
Stop.
separated, dude. But
Sounds
dude,
awesome.
Okay, but like
I'm
I was
on board.
Okay, but like I was saying earlier, but then you learn, dude, and this is and these are the things that I know Heather's going to have like things to say about.
Yeah.
She's going to be like, I didn't get it, and then she's going to explain it perfectly. Is that, dude, you find out that the graves
Yeah.
of all the people who have died in this thing
Yeah.
are zombies, and that the only way for the scientist to train this zombie is to give him like fresh flesh.
Oh.
So all their army buddies
Oh.
are like being fed.
Oh.
And like this guy's doing experiments. They call him Frankenstein. He's doing experiments on them, and like one of them, dude, is a body. It's like a body laying there, and it has no head, but the brain stem and the brain are there.
Ugh.
And they're like, they're like, that's a guy that I was talking to a week ago.
Stop.
Like, you have fucking issues, scientist man.
Oh, my Lord.
So in the end, dude, no one's a fucking hero.
Yikes.
You know?
Yeah.
Like the scientist guy who's like
Wow.
being proactive
Right.
is actually fucked up.
Oh, my God.
And these army guys are clearly hopeless. You've got, dude, there's one guy in it doing his very best John Goodman impression. And he like looks like him and he's acting like him. I don't know. That movie is pretty well regarded.
Yeah.
It's just weird because I think it's the best one, but it just no one talks about it. Everyone knows about Dawn of the Dead and
Right.
Night of the Living Dead. Like, they're coming to get you, Barbara. Remember that in Night of the Living Dead? Like, there's no lines from Day of the Dead that anybody knows.
Well, obviously, because you'd have to scream them.
Exactly.
I think people's obsession with zombie movies, like a post-apocalyptic movies, but zombie movies in general, is what it says about us, like how humans are reflected, how humans behave. And that sounds like a fabulous example.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the thing. Like, when I watched it, it's just funny because when I watched it, I was in my zombie phase.
Mhm.
So I was like young and I was just like, where are the zombies?
Right.
Like, fuck this movie.
Right.
But also at the same time, the movie is so good, and this is my point, is that even as a young person who only was looking for zombies, I recognized how intense that movie is.
Yeah.
As a kid.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't know. I just love that movie.
I'll have to watch it.
Yeah. It's really good. And I just honestly really can't wait to hear what Heather says about it.
It'll be exciting.
Yeah. Because
I'll definitely tune into that
like
one.
I said, it's thought-provoking.
Right. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so let's wrap this up. So I don't know. What else is there to say? It's a pretty good novel.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
Stop it. I loved it.
Okay.
I would highly recommend this to anybody, not even a science fiction fan, to anyone who just likes a good adventure. I loved it.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic.
It's certainly a good novel. And
I also think it's a good introduction to Arthur C. Clarke.
really,
Yeah, I do. I think it's great just because of the grand. I mean, I'd probably come in with a warning, like not all his books are like this, but
Right.
the way that he writes is beautiful,
yeah.
and the way that he makes you think is wonderful.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And I am now realizing Amy loves it. People in that Facebook group love it. And I even read online somewhere someone said that, it's considered his best novel.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So you should totally check it out. And yeah, this is a long episode, so let's just wrap it up.
Okay.
Check me out on Instagram at The Space Dreamers. I'm on Instagram. And join that Facebook group. Connect with me there. And we can talk about Arthur C. Clarke. You can give me talking points. I'm probably going to do this in the future, unless they kick me out. Like, dude, no one's interested in your whatever. I'll probably do this every time I record an episode. Post something and say, like, anything from this novel that you find interesting that you want us to talk about, we'll totally talk about it.
Totally cool.
So if you want any kind of like input or involvement, then
Yeah.
join the group or talk to me on Instagram. Whatever. I'm just saying, we can make it collaborative. So that's it. Next episode is... shit. Hold on. I can't. I think it's...
You had such a clear path going into this. I have no idea where you are.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, next episode is going to be Reach for Tomorrow, which is a collection of short stories.
Mm.
And then the next one after that will be another novel, if you happen to be someone listening to this who's only interested in the novels. We're getting there. So, yeah. Tune in next time, and thank you. That's it. Thank you for listening. All right, people. One more episode in the books here at the Space Streamers podcast. It honestly feels good to get back to the novels. When I started when this podcast came to me as an idea, it was simply that I'm going to read the 20 novels that are solely written by Arthur C. Clarke. Since then, it has evolved. I'm doing all the short story collections, as I'm sure you've heard. I'm doing some just bonus episodes about movies, things related to Clarke. But it's good to expand, but at the same time, it's good to go back to the original idea, which is to explore all 20 novels. The City in the Stars is, I am learning, considered to be the best, actually, by a lot of people, which surprises me. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's just not what I look for when I look for a novel by Clarke. But that's not to say it's bad. What I do need to do right now is thank everyone involved, because this is not just me doing this. I need to thank so many people. I need to thank my gracious co-host Amy for joining me and listening to my mad ravings about Sausage Party. I have to give a huge shout out to Kevin Lesage for making all the music you hear in this episode. And pretty much every other episode. Thank you, Kevin. You make totally awesome music, and you make the podcast that much better. Let's see. What else? Thank you to my sister Heather for performing my ads. And last but not least, Quinlan, my man. Thank you so much, Q, for doing my voiceovers. You are an immense talent and a kind-hearted person and a good soul. And I love you, dog. Okay. What else? Please leave a 5-star review on Apple, on iTunes podcast app if you could. I don't know if you can rate things on Spotify, but follow me over there. If you're listening on Spotify, thank you for doing that. Thank you for listening anywhere. If you're like outside my house while I edit this and you're listening being creepy in the woods, thank you. Seriously, don't do that though. That's weird. Let's see. What else? Who else? Follow me on Instagram, please, at The Space Streamers on Instagram. We can talk about sci-fi over there. I post all kinds of behind-the-scenes photos, videos, clips from the show, a lot of just Arthur C. Clarke stuff over there. And, dude, honestly, hit me up on Instagram and tell me what author I should cover next. You know who I'm thinking of doing? Joanna Russ. But that's just a thought. I really don't know if that's happening or not. But... seems interesting. Anyway, let's wrap this up. What else? I love you for listening. That's what else. Please join me next time. Next time we are talking about Reach for Tomorrow, which is a collection of short stories. And then the one after that will be The Deep Range. So we just did 2 novels in a row, City in the Stars. Earthlight and then The City in the Stars. We're taking another short story collection break next week. We are doing Reach for Tomorrow, and then we're following it up with The Deep Range, which is, so far, I've read 7 novels so far for this podcast, and The Deep Range is my favorite. It is amazing. It's not even about space. It's a fucking incredible novel. So anyway, join me next time. Thank you so much for joining me this time, and keep dreaming about space. Love you.
This has been a Sumadre production. Thank you for joining us.